This week on the Orange Box podcast, we talk about our games of the year for 2024, both new and new to us, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to that beautiful bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 65. I am your host, the man whose number one New Year's resolution is to not buy another PC handheld, no matter how great they look, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, for this new year, the man whose number one New Year's resolution is to use Windows even less, Justin, better known as I'm Zaracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
Yeah, I had to think back a little bit because since we had been meeting on Mondays, not thinking about the fact that, hey, actually Christmas was, after our last episode. So, had to think about that. So it's been a very, very good week. Definitely had some challenges here and there, but overall it's definitely been good. Of course, as I just mentioned, Christmas was after the last time we recorded. I went to my sister's house for Christmas Eve, stayed over up through Thursday, so spent Christmas there and the day after as well. Had a good time. My niece and nephew, they both enjoyed seeing me, playing with me, and also on Christmas morning, having me open up and put together all their stuff. So that was fun, but it was definitely a good time. Just got to be with the family and just enjoy time there. And even, the day after, I had to work and my sister had to work as well. But after that, we still had some time afterwards. And since I was working remotely, so I was just still working at her place. And then, like I said, afterwards, we just had some time together before I left. And then last Friday, my family on my mom's side normally has Christmas dinner, but my mom didn't want to go this year, so what I did was I made her dinner, tried something a little new, tried some other stuff that I've made before that she liked. I might have to adjust some things, but for the most part, I think everything turned out pretty well. And then, of course, yesterday was New Year's Eve, and what we actually did was something that has been a bit of a tradition. My mom normally watches my niece and nephew every New Year's Eve, so that way my sister can get some rest, and also in case she ever had any plans, she could go out and do that, and also with her husband, they could both go out and do something. So yesterday was also very different because my mom had been busy with stuff, but what I did was I made hot chocolate for everyone, some fresh homemade hot chocolate. Then I also, for my mom and I made some crab dip, and unfortunately, because of stuff she had been doing with them, dinner sort of got bumped back. So we had the crab dip probably around 9 p.m., which was fine because my mom was going to be making the main course and whatnot. So we actually ended up eating dinner probably around 12:30, which is fine and whatnot. I mean, it was late, but we got to have dinner then, and then we had some sparkling cider afterwards to celebrate the new year. But yeah, definitely was a good time. Oh, but one thing though that really took a lot of time over my weekend was I got a new phone, and I was trying to flash a new OS onto there, but the problem is, unlike with my previous phone, this one I was using an unofficial build, so I had to go through so many different steps, and it took me the entirety of the weekend and 3 attempts before I actually got it right. I don't feel like I got completely correct because there's something that is popping up whenever I boot up my phone, but at least the operating system is there and it seems to be working so far. But I'll definitely need to look into that. But I'm still in the process of switching over my carrier, but that should be finalizing next week, but that at least the hard stuff is at least complete. So there's that. And yeah, that's everything I have.
Good stuff. There's something I was going to ask you. I don't remember. I'm sure it'll come back to me later. Well, as far as how my week has gone, Christmas was pretty good. It was, of course, my daughter got her 2DS, and she's played that quite a bit over the past week. And it's been fun watching her, just mess around with a bunch of different games and try out different things. And she's getting better, little by little. To some degree, it's still like, she's still very new to it, because really up until about 2 weeks ago, she had never picked up a controller and played before. So it's still new to her, but she's catching on quickly, and she's a very smart girl, so she's doing really well. So that's been fun, and my kids all got some stuff that they were really happy to get for Christmas, and it was a good holiday. On my end, I got, in addition to the games that you got me for Christmas, which I'll talk about at least one of those a bit later. There was, my in-laws got me one of those Lodge Dutch ovens that's coated in ceramic. So it's like, instead of just being a straight cast iron, it's got the ceramic coating on the inside. So you can't really use like metal utensils with it, but it cleans a lot easier in general. And it's really nice. It looks really cool. I love the way that it looks. And my wife got me both. Well, and she got me a few different things, but I'm trying to think of what specifically there was. It's on tip of my brain. Okay, so there was season 1 of Frasier, the new series of Frasier. That was good. And she got me a different kind of garlic press. Like this one, you like, it's kind of like iron knuckles almost, but it's like you roll over the garlic cloves to crush them. So it's similar to like a garlic press, except easier to clean. And instead of, squeezing it, you're just pushing down on it. So it's pretty cool. I'd have to actually probably look at the picture that I took, because it's like, I know the stuff I got. It's just, for some reason, I'm blanking on what some of those things were. Let me just bring up, because I took a picture of it when I got it. Let's see here. Oh yes, she also got me a Skillet, one of the Skillet CDs that I didn't have, which really is, basically I don't have any before this, the last one I had bought was probably Monster, I think was the last one, so that was like 2009. Quiddler, which is like a card game where you have to make words with a certain number of cards, and whoever makes the most words and so on and so forth gets the most points, you win. So that was pretty fun. And the other stuff was stuff that we got, or that I got for both of us, which includes the full series of Sherlock, the BBC series, the entire collection of Psych, including the movies on Blu-ray, Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol, or I'm sorry, not Ghost Protocol, Dead Reckoning Part 1, and then a Jim Caviezel movie that we hadn't seen before called Infidel. We like Jim Caviezel, so, and the concept of it sounded pretty interesting. But yeah, I feel like there was something else, but maybe that was it. I mean, of course, like I said, there was those games that you got me. But anyway, otherwise, lots of gaming in. Unfortunately, today's the last day of my vacation, and tomorrow I'm back to work. So Thursday I will be back at it again after 2 weeks off. And let's see here. Oh, yesterday, of course, New Year's Eve, and this is the first time that we actually did something for New Year's Eve in a while, because the kids just hadn't been old enough to stay up late. So we ended up watching Inside Out, which we got for Christmas from my sister-in-law. And then we rented Inside Out 2 on Amazon because we'd heard pretty good things about it and figured, okay, well, we can at least give it a shot, see if the sequel was good. And it actually was. It was great. I really liked it. So, and it didn't have any of the modern audience stuff that I was expecting it would have in it. It just was great like the first one. So, well worth watching. Which reminds me, I never put down my recommendations and dissuasions, so I'll get to that later. Oh, yes. So we watched movies. Originally, I was planning on making dinner, but I decided instead to order pizza. So we ended up having pizza twice this week, but it was nice and easy. Just ordered pizza. We ate pizza, watched a movie. I made some homemade kettle corn during the second movie. And then after the movies, we played some Mario Party, me and all three kids. And then we just pretty much hung out until midnight. Kids played some of their games. I played a little bit of mine. And I was working on some other stuff too, editing videos and so on. I did get recordings done for the next comparison and got started working on the comparison. But I'll talk a little more about that when I get to talking about games I've been playing. And I know there was something else. Something that I decided to try my hand at for cooking this week was making roast beef. So like making the stuff that you would put on sandwiches. It came out okay. I followed a recipe that I found. It definitely needed a lot more salt. Maybe I should have just played some PlayStation fanboy videos around it to salt it properly. But in all seriousness, yeah, I think next time I try to do that, I'm not going to worry about following a recipe and just go with my gut on it, because I've done enough cooking of different kinds of meat to where, even though this is my first time cooking top loin, which is a much leaner beef, but I mean, in terms of the tenderness and the overall flavor was good. It really, really needed salt. It just didn't have anywhere near enough salt. And so I think probably if I'd put down some salt and pepper before putting on the other seasonings, it probably would have tasted a lot better. But it's still pretty good. Came out good as far as tenderness and, texture and all that. Just not quite the flavor that I was looking for. So. But otherwise, it's pretty good. I did get my Chubby Ninja Burger video up this morning. I ended up delisting it. The main reason for that being that there were some dislikes on the video, and I have a feeling that some people might be taking it as me cashing in on Gabe's death. And that's not at all what I'm doing. So it's not completely gone. People with the link can still view it, and I still shared it in the Married to the Games community. But I'm probably just going to keep it that way, just limited to that and anybody else who, asks for the link. So if you haven't seen it yet and you want to see it, you're welcome to see it, because it is a really good burger. But I don't want it to seem like I'm trying to take advantage of the situation when really all I'm doing, it's been coming up on a year since he died. It's just me trying to honor him, in whatever way I can, trying to, I guess, pay my respects in a sense, because there's not really anything I can do. And so this is something that I could do that uses my skill set, I guess you could say, because cooking is the one thing I'm actually good at. Even though the cooking process didn't come out great, the food itself was delicious. It's just that the smash burgers didn't look as pretty initially, and I messed up on the egg because I forgot to spray the griddle or put something down to keep the eggs from sticking, so they stuck a bit. But they were fried eggs anyway, it wasn't over easy, so it wasn't a huge deal. And like I said, it still tasted amazing. But yeah, so anyway, but it is up technically it's just not public. So, but I think that's everything. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's a real shame that you had to go and delist it. And I mean, it's not. One thing I also thought about is the fact that you had been mentioning his passing before, and I mean, unfortunately, there's going to be, I think, somewhat of a disconnect because of that, because of the fact that you've been discussing it on different channels, as far as like you having that tribute was on your cooking channel as opposed to you discussing it, say, on the podcast, or even mentioning it on your personal YouTube channel, where you've mentioned his passing, where you even also shared the link to his GoFundMe for contributions for his family. So I think that people might not recognize the fact that this is your way of paying your respects to him, in addition to stuff that you've done in the past with trying to help support his family as well. So I think that people unfortunately have lost that context, but I understand that that was you trying to be respectful and just show something that he enjoyed, which is unfortunate in that aspect. But yeah. But I did. Oh, you mentioned the movies you watched, and that made me remember that I forgot two things to mention. First thing, and this is something that you'll finally be proud of me for, I watched The Greatest Showman, and I enjoyed it. It was good. I
You have a song stuck in your head at all?
Yes, there are definitely a couple songs that were like, okay, I know this kind of catchy. I think this is gonna stick in my head for a while. I feel like I would need to watch it again just to make sure there's not something that I feel like I would have missed. And I'll be honest, my knowledge of the actual history of what happened around the circus is completely. I have zero to little knowledge, so
Right.
I don't know how much of the film is accurate to actual life events, or like especially, I guess, around the middle, to like the potential accusations of an affair or anything like that. So I don't know how much is accurate.
Yeah, I think some of that was kind of made a little more in the movie than it was in real life. I can't remember what exactly happened because we looked into some of the stuff after we saw the movie, but yeah, I can't remember exactly what happened there. I don't think it was quite to that extent, but it gave a little more drama to the movie, and it was fine. I mean, he was still faithful to his wife and everything, so. But yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. And then also another film that I finally got around to watching was also Godzilla -1. That I bought that I bought the Blu-ray some time ago, and I finally just said, you know what, I'll go ahead, open it now, and watch it. And I'll say that it is, as much as I enjoyed Shin Godzilla, this one definitely blew that one out of the water. It's sort of I guess you could say, a reboot of the original Godzilla, in a sense that it takes place around the same time, and somewhat follows similar events, but at the same time it really focuses. I mean, granted, the first one technically did that as well, but it really focused on the characters and their own relationships, both with like their history and their own personal conflicts, in addition to a giant monster causing havoc on the nation. So I thought it was very well done, and definitely I would say would be, I mean, granted, I didn't see too many films this past year, but it definitely would be my film of the year in that aspect. But yeah, I just remembered those when you said, oh yeah, and we also watched this. I said, oh wait, I forgot to mention that. But yeah, that's that. Oh, and I definitely know that you are definitely one proud father with your daughter having a quick knack for learning gaming.
Yeah, she's just, in general, she learns things faster than her brothers, because she's always around, so she's just like absorbing things constantly. And I mean, she's smart anyway, so it just adds to that. But yeah, I actually have not seen an actual new Godzilla movie since the 1997 or 98 one, whichever it was, one with Matthew Broderick. That's the last time I saw one when I was a kid. And so, in fact, I would have been about 10, 11 years old. But, yeah, I need to watch some of those one of these days. What else was I going to say? Oh, yeah. And, I mean, I already mentioned this to you when you were helping me out with stuff, but we ended up deciding to do the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy over the course of several days. Let's see here. I think we started on Christmas, and then we finished Monday. Because we did, like, the entirety of Fellowship on Christmas, and then we did all of Part 1 and part of Part 2 of the Two Towers the day after that. Actually, we may have started the day after Christmas. Anyway, but and then we did first half of Return of the King, or the rest of the Two Towers, and the first half of Return of the King the following day, and then we finished up Return of the King the day after that. So however the days worked out for that. The point is that we watched it over the course of over the weekend, and it was glorious. I mean, it's always great going through that. Yeah, most of it I wasn't actually watching. I was just listening to it because I've seen the movies so many times that, like, I know what's going on just by hearing it. But yeah, that's fun. I think that's probably going to be a new thing we do every year as long as I have the time off to do it. So, and I usually try to plan out my vacation time to where I can have the time to do that. So yeah, good stuff.
Very good.
All right. So, what have you been playing this past week?
So I'll just get these first couple things out of the way since they're just small tidbits and not worth recording anything. So while I was at my sister's and I played some Super Mario Brothers 3 with my niece and nephew because they wanted to play some Mario games. And then later on, while they were here, we played some Lego Marvel Superheroes just because they wanted to play, well, my nephew wanted to play Spider-Man, but that's really the only Spider-Man game that I have that he could technically play, that he's old enough to play, so they played that and they enjoyed that for a while. And then they decided to play Stardew Valley. And originally they said that they wanted to play the farm game, and I thought, what farm game? And then I remembered, oh, Stardew Valley. So we picked up, and I didn't even remember that we had a multiplayer game set up. So we played that for a while, and they sort of were learning about how to actually control the game. But because we were spending enough time in the game, I thought, I want to get back to actually my farm and to go back to that. So I went back, tried to do some basic stuff, trying to remember what I was even doing in the first place. And then also, because there have been a couple different updates that, while I had done that in my multiplayer game with friends, in my personal game, I never played that stuff. So I'm sort of unlocking that stuff and learning that stuff and just going through those steps, as well as trying to catch up with what I've learned through my friends' gameplay, as far as like getting all the new stuff and also trying to figure out how everything works again, but just doing stuff there. So that was good getting back into that. Also with friends, I played some more Factorio. They've been playing this by themselves and expanding their base, which is fine because I really don't have that much to contribute outside of defense purposes. But by the time I actually joined back with them, they had already expanded their base and had started making bases on new planets. And so we explored one planet because it was completely new, and it's very interesting because of the fact that everything there seems to be decaying, essentially. And so, or not decaying, but more so spoiling. So everything we harvest has to be used in a short amount of time, or else it will spoil. Also, there are a lot of exploding fungi, which fortunately is fine for us because they had been developing new types of mech armor to protect us. So any damage we received is pretty much minimal because we just quickly regenerate at that point. But on that note, though, we went back to our original base, and the aliens there are definitely much stronger than they were beforehand, to the point where even with the new armor, I was completely decimated in seconds because of how powerful they are. But we did establish new defense turrets, and also we developed a new weapon called a Tesla cannon or something like that, which is very effective. And we also even have some artillery, which wipes out nests quickly. But it definitely was interesting getting back into that game and doing some new stuff. Oh, and one last, I guess, game I sort of forgot was Dark Souls 3, which I don't have any footage of, but I was playing that on and off on my Steam Deck while I was over at my sister's. But because you had been playing Dark Souls Remastered, and I'd helped you out with that, some which you'll probably talk about later on, so I'll leave that to you, I decided to get back into Dark Souls Remastered. And I actually do have to apologize to you, because when we were trying to do our exchange at the Centipede Demon, I realized later on when I went back to play by myself, I had not reached that point yet. So what the fog gate that I thought was the Centipede Demon was actually the Demon Fire Sage, which is why you couldn't see my sign. I couldn't see your sign.
No, because that's where I was at the Fire Sage Demon. I can't remember if that's what you told me, but that's where I was.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So some of them just don't seem to work, but go ahead.
Okay. So I thought the actual one was a Centipede Demon, but so because of that, when I went through there, I did not expect the actual Demon Fire Sage, and so I was quite surprised. But also, I learned that I had spent so much time in Dark Souls 3 and haven't played Dark Souls Remastered in such a long while that I forgot how fewer invincibility frames you get with dodge rolling. So every time I thought I should be fine, no, I got hit, and I lost more times than I probably should have, which I think probably will be about 5 or 6. And considering the fact that it's pretty much just a reskin of the first boss in the game, I feel like that's kind of sad. But also at the same time, those AoE bombs were quite annoying to try to dodge around. But yeah, so got through that, and I did a little bit more exploring, but I didn't really do too much of that. But I'll see if I get back to the game, because this is a game I still actually need to finish. So I'm hoping that I have the motivation to just get back and see it through. And who knows? Who knows what will happen? I won't say too much. I'll save that for later, but we'll see what happens. And then lastly, I played a little bit of Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. Didn't really do too much in that. I was trying to really just grind some. So I did some of the arena battles, just trying to see if I can get some more points there so that I can get better commands to use. And then also just, again, in general, just to level up both my base stats, but also trying to improve my commands as well, so that way I can meld new commands to get stronger spells through that. But that's it. That's everything I've played.
All right, good stuff. Yeah, it's funny when you were talking about Stardew, and I mean, obviously you've talked about Stardew a bunch of times, but suddenly I started thinking, I haven't played the original Harvest Moon or Harvest Moon 64 in a really long time, and I love both of those games, and those were the only two that I played that I really loved. And the other ones that I tried, it just never could get into because they got just a little too complicated. And Stardew was kind of like that, at least with my initial attempt to play it. But yeah, I'm halfway thinking maybe one of these days I just need to boot up one of those. I mean, I know at least Harvest Moon 64 is on Nintendo Switch Online, and if I was going to play it, I would absolutely be using my N64 controller, because it's I have it, I might as well use it. Just, nostalgia and everything attached to that. But the original Harvest Moon is extremely good, and for me, between those two, having only really played those two, I'm not sure which one's my favorite, but they're both really good. I love them both. But anyway, let's see here. Yeah, with Dark Souls, it's definitely, I mean, like you said, those invincibility frames, that is a big difference. I mean, for me, at least, when it came to going back to Dark Souls after playing Dark Souls 3, because of the fact that I didn't utilize the invincibility frames nearly as much, it wasn't a huge deal for me. Especially because, when I went back to Dark Souls, I went to playing as the sorcerer class instead of playing a physical class, so that wasn't as much of an issue. But yeah, I definitely remember that being a big difference between the two. But going into that, because of course this was the main game I played, of course with Dark Souls Remastered, I'm not going to have footage for a lot of the different stuff. I'm just going to have some general footage that I'll play here. But so originally my intent was that I would play for a bit and then connect with you so that you could help me transfer over the Moonlight Greatsword and Manus' Catalyst in order to just get them from my original character over to my actual sorcerer class. And because timing just didn't really seem like it was going to work out very well, I just decided instead to keep going through the game and just beat them and get the weapons on my own. So I did. And I mean, now if I hadn't been able to get the Moonlight Greatsword cutting off Seath's tail, then I definitely would have transferred it over. But since I was able to get the tail cut off, I just went ahead and grabbed it. But yeah, I grabbed that. I really like the Moonlight Greatsword. It's fun, and it scales. The power of it scales with how much intelligence you have, or I can never remember if it's intelligence or intellect. I guess it would be intelligence. Intellect, I'm thinking of, that's Destiny that uses intellect. But anyway, so yeah, it scales with intelligence, and it's just a really strong sword from that standpoint. It has like a beam attack. One-handed, it's just like a vertical beam. And two-handed, it's a horizontal beam that can easily hit multiple enemies, so it's really nifty. I mean, of course, Dark Souls 1, the one downside is that when you use those special attacks, the weapon breaks down a lot faster, and so you end up having to basically carry around repair powder to repair your weapon occasionally. Whereas in Dark Souls 3, it felt like I never had to repair my weapons. In fact, I didn't. I never had to repair anything because nothing ever broke down. It was just drastic difference there. But anyway, so I went into these various fights, including all the DLC bosses. I don't think I died to any of the DLC bosses this time around. Granted, I was extremely overleveled, for sure. But yeah, I mean, like I had really strong spells anyway. And so it's like I had strong spells. I was extremely overleveled. By the time I finished the game, I was level 335. So ridiculous. I mean, like I was well past where I needed to be very early on in the game. I just did it because it was like, okay, I want to raise these stats. So I did. And yeah, I was basically all around great on stats. And the great thing about doing that is that I could literally use anything in the game. I could use spells, I could use physical attacks, I could, do whatever the heck I wanted. And I was mostly sorcery. I did some pyromancy here and there. Some physical attacks were needed, like when I fought Seath, because Seath is very resistant to sorcery. I ended up having to go in with Zweihander. Especially because none of the catalysts, the sorcery catalysts that I had, actually in general did enough physical damage to really be useful. I will say though, the catalyst, if you can get it from the Fire Sage Demon, the catalyst from that is actually really good, and I actually used that. Basically, once I got it, I used it the majority of the rest of the game, because it's very strong, both in terms of its sorcery damage, but also in terms of its physical damage, especially because it's a fire element weapon. So whenever I used that, I mean, like it just does like a quick stab. So it's a good thrusting weapon, very short, quick stab. a lot of enemies would do quite a bit of damage. I think actually that's how I finished off Manus, was with that stabbing attack, which I'm actually watching the footage right now and see if that's what it shows. But yeah, so, and then when I actually got Manus's Catalyst, I used that the majority of the rest of the game. The downside with the Manus Catalyst is it is stronger, like it doubles the power of every spell, but it also reduces the count of the number of spells you have by half. So it's kind of like pluses and minuses on whether or not to even use that. And I mean, I used it more often than not, but there was a few occasions where I didn't bother using it. But yeah, so then of course, so I went through all the bosses in the new game. Unfortunately, I had made some mistakes that prevented me from being able to get a couple of covenants I needed in order to get some of the miracles primarily. And in one case, there was the last like pyromancy I needed that I couldn't just pick up from the environment was something that required talking to Quelana down in Blighttown, but you have to do it before you fight the Bed of Chaos. And I hadn't talked to her before that, so she disappeared. So that, along with needing the additional miracles that I had missed, one of which you get from what's its name? Gwendolyn, for joining the Dark Sun Covenant. Another one you get from the Gravelord Covenant. I don't know what the actual covenant's called. I can't remember. Gravelord Servant, I think is what it is. So you have to get that before you defeat the Gravelord guy down in the Giant's Tomb. So it's like those things I had missed, and then I made a really dumb mistake that I was just like, I can't believe I made that mistake. And that was so you know, I had already previously beaten New Game Plus, New Game and New Game Plus with my original character. Those times I didn't do any cheesing, of course. No soul duplication, just did it 100% legit. All strength build, hovel armor set, the works. And so I had already made 2 of the weapons that I needed that you get specifically from the Soul of Sif. So there's 2 different versions of Artorias' sword and then one of Artorias' shield. And I thought that I had done the 2 swords, but not the shield. Turns out I had done 1 sword and the shield. And so with my new character, when I turned the Soul of Sif into one of the weapons, I did the shield because I thought that
Oh, no.
And so it was like, oh man, I'm going to have to do this again. And I mean, when I realized that there was other stuff I would have to do in another New Game Plus anyway, it was less of an issue to me, but it was still just like, I was really hoping that I wouldn't have to do a 4th playthrough. And I didn't have to do a full 4th playthrough, but I still had to go into New Game Plus 1 with my second character. And so between that and so it was that, some weapons that I needed that I hadn't gotten already, and then sorceries. Actually, no, I gotten all the sorceries on the new character, but I needed the pyromancies, and I needed the miracles in order to be able to get the achievements for those. And I guess I should back up a little bit and just say, basically, because I was already on my 3rd playthrough, I just decided, I'm going to go ahead and try to get all of the achievements. So I was aiming for that. And since I ended up having to, go into New Game Plus 1 with my new character, I figured it wasn't going to be that big of a deal anyway, considering the fact that I was extremely over-leveled. And so I went ahead and I, went in and I basically just sped through it. Like I skipped whatever I could skip. There was some boss. I did a lot of bosses out of order. I think the first boss I did after the initial asylum demon that you have to face, for the very beginning of the game. I think the very first boss I did was Quelaag. And of course, that took us all of, since we did that one together, it took us all of like 30 seconds to get through. It was very fast. And let's see here. I mean, like, I don't remember what all I did. I definitely skipped some bosses where I could. Like, since I wanted to do Seif pretty early because, I needed that soul in order to get the boss weapon, I took the back way to get in. Just went down through the valley past the Hydra, but I didn't even fight the Hydra. I just ran past it, went up the ladder, and went over to fight Seif. Skipped it, like I said, once again, skipped as much as I possibly could. So, I think that was actually probably one of the harder times I had against Seif, at least on a first attempt. But it wasn't, I didn't die at all. I struggled a little more because I wasn't used to fighting Seif with sorcery or, well, I don't know. I think I had less trouble the last time, but granted, this is New Game Plus, even though I was a lot stronger. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Point is, went in, took care of Seif, moved forward, took care of whatever bosses I absolutely had to take care of. Got through Sen's Fortress pretty quickly because I knew what to expect. And of course I had better spells and actually was able to use a bow so I could take care of some enemies from afar that were otherwise very annoying to deal with. And, went against the Iron Golem, took him out without too much trouble, even though I definitely got hit by his axe air attack thing way more times than I care to admit. But I still managed to survive. And then actually, I might have died against him now that I think about it. I may have died against him and then had to go back. Or no, it was that I died to the fireball throwing giant, which I had to take out before I went to go fight the Iron Golem. And then went ahead, went to Honor Londo, and fought, what's their faces? Ornstein and Smough. Let's see, is that the footage? Yeah, okay. So, this time, it took a grand total, it was about 2 minutes to beat them. I think I had like maybe 4 or 5, I only had to hit Ornstein like 4 or 5 times before he died. I did bring in Solaire, but he was basically just targeting Smough the whole time. So Smough I had a little more trouble with, but I still took them both out on my first try. I mean, you would hope so, being, level 300 something, that I would be able to take them out on my first try. And of course, having lots of experience with them, knowing how to avoid attacks and so on. But yeah, that one went pretty fast. And when it came to doing like Bed of Chaos, I completely skipped past the Fire Sage and Centipede Demon because you can take the back way to get into Izalith if you join the Chaos Servant Covenant with the Spider Lady. If you join her and get up to rank 2, which is just giving 20 humanity, and I had more than enough humanity, and even if I didn't, it's easy to duplicate, then you can take the back way in, and taking the back way in, you can completely skip past doing the Fire Sage Demon and the Centipede Demon. You can just go to Bed of Chaos and fight it quickly. I did end up dying the first time I went in there, which was annoying because then I had a bit of a trek. But it was still, overall, it was an easier trek because I only had to go from that bonfire by the worm thing that I told you about when we were trying to coordinate before. And that was about it. But yeah, so all that being said, obviously you and I eventually connected. We were able to do some trading of items and weapons primarily from one of my characters to you, and then from your character to my old character, so that I could get all the weapons I needed in order to get the hardest achievement in the game, which is getting all unique weapons. And then from there, got the remaining spell-related achievements and got all achievements in the game. And afterward, I mean, it was late when I finished that, and the next day I uninstalled Dark Souls from both my Steam Deck and my PC. And although I still love the game and I will probably end up playing it again in the future, I am relieved that I don't even have to bother doing much of anything. I mean, like, if I go back to the game, I could just enjoy the game, not worry about achievements, just have fun with it. Nothing else. Who knows if I would go in with, go back to my New Game Plus 2 character that, it has all the, that's basically the strength pyromancer build, or if I would go back to my sorcery character where I'm extremely over leveled and it would just be a walk in the park the entire way through the game. But yeah, I think the entire time it took me to get through New Game Plus, well, at least what I did of New Game Plus, because I stopped after I got the last pyromancy after beating Bed of Chaos. I think I had like maybe 4 or 5 hours total, and I did probably about half the game's bosses for that, because it's just like, okay, I know what to do. I know what I can skip. I know how to get around, how to avoid different enemies. I used poison arrows immediately on those Silver Knight archers and on Orlando, so I didn't have to deal with them at all, and made it a piece of cake, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's all I have for Dark Souls. But in terms of other stuff I played, so I played a little more Okami Den. The footage that's being shown here is just the footage I had from last week because I didn't record anything new. Haven't made a whole lot of progress. I basically just played a little bit yesterday. I can't remember. There may have been some between, at other times last week, but I honestly don't remember when I played what parts. But yeah, haven't really made any more progress. Haven't even gotten to the next dungeon yet. So, but one of the games that I got for Christmas from you was Armored Core 6. What's the name of it? Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon. Is that the right?
Sounds right.
Something of Rubicon. Anyway, so yes, I played a little bit of Armored Core 6 on my Steam Deck. I have not tried it on my PC yet because I basically just booted up briefly on Christmas Day, and I played enough to get through the first, basically the tutorial mission quest thing with the boss at the end, and I need to fiddle with the settings to get a consistent 60 frames per second if that's even possible. But overall, performance I'm pretty happy with. Looks great. I'm like I said, I'm sure that there's some things I can do, some settings I can tweak to get that consistent 60. But even without that, I was still appreciating the performance. It's just, obviously if I can get it even better, then I want to get it better. But yeah, I had a good time with it. I did. It took me several tries to get through the boss of the level. But even with that, it still was. It's a lot more forgiving than Dark Souls, for sure. Particularly because of the fact that you have checkpoints like you do. A checkpoint at the beginning of the boss fight, so that if you die, you can just go back in immediately. You get back all of your healing, all your repair kits, and you just go back and try again. So even if you went in with one repair kit, if you die, you come back and you have all 3 to work with. And it took me a handful of tries, but I did eventually actually beat it. And I forgot to actually record that full fight, but I did at least get the end of it recorded. So the part where the boss is exploding. So it's better than nothing, It's something at least. But yeah, I like in terms of the game though, it's definitely something I can see myself really getting into, because I love the movement and the combat. It's like this is what I want from a mech game for sure. So the only real reason why I didn't play more of it was mostly because I was still in the middle of my Dark Souls playthrough at the time, and so I just thought it would probably be better for me to hold off for the time being. Plus, of course, I also have some other games I've been working on, so it's more like I'll probably play through it sometime in 2025. I think that's very likely, just not right at this time. It's going to be a little bit. So, other stuff. Let's see here. I did play a bit more Superland. I made some progress. Got the hookshot equivalent item. Actually, I guess it's more like the grapple beam is basically what it is the grapple beam from Metroid. So that's been pretty nifty. And it's definitely got some more interesting practical uses than the grapple beam does in Metroid. Like making bridges and stuff like that. Pretty neat. But yeah, not a whole lot of progress in that. Just played a little bit after I finished Dark Souls. And last thing I played was some Persona 5 Strikers. So I got my gameplay recorded for both the Steam Deck and the Switch versions for that comparison. I've started working on the comparison. I just haven't got super far into it. So this time I was able to record the audio independently of the game, or rather independently of, instead of just recording the audio through my phone, I'm recording it instead through directly from the Steam Deck. So I don't have to worry about background noise. Get cleaner audio. Sounds way better than it has before. It's probably going to throw people off who watched my other videos because of how much better it is. The only thing that was weird about it was the initial recording I did for the Switch version. There was something weird about how it recorded, and like the beginning of anytime that there's like a section where there's no sound coming from the game, it would give like this weird like buzzing sound. It was just really odd, and I think I've been able to clean out enough of it to where it should be fine when it comes to the final product, but it's not going to be as good as the Steam Deck's audio sounds. And it's possible it's a problem with the Switch itself, but I kind of doubt it. So either way, I wasn't going to re-record the Switch stuff because whenever like there's music and stuff in the game, everything sounds great. When there's music and normal game audio, it sounds great. It's just when there's silent gaps that it has that weird buzzing, and it is something that I can clean up at least. So I think it's going to be just fine. Either way, it runs extremely well on the Steam Deck. Other than, the fact that you have to use Proton GE 8.25, I think is what I used. And as long as you use that, then it'll boot up and then it runs flawlessly. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Solid 60 frames per second. Well, not just solid, but like basically a locked 60 frames per second. And yeah, it's good stuff. Like I was kind of tempted to get into it, but at the same time, I'm not going to do that right now because I need to make sure I'm not in the middle of multiple games before I really start diving into that, because especially because technically it is an Atlas RPG and I already have 2 Atlas RPGs that I haven't finished yet, and hope sometime this year to get Metaphor ReFantazio. But I want to at least get through one, if not both of those other Atlas RPGs before I pick up Metaphor, and I figured that way I have a better chance of getting it cheaper anyway. So, but yeah, good stuff. I don't think I really have anything else to say. I think everything else I have here is just stuff for the discussion on games of the year.
Okay, very good. Question I have regarding, also I guess first to say, congratulations getting through all the achievements for Dark Souls Remastered. I know that definitely was not the easiest thing to get through with getting all collecting everything. But one question I did have is for the miracles, I guess for any sorceries as well that might apply as well, or also pyromancies. How many did you have to get from covenants? Like, how many covenants did you have to actually actively join and participate in before you got all the stuff you needed?
Most of them, well, honestly, I'm not sure. But even the ones where you had to join them, you don't necessarily have to like actively participate per se. Like for example, the Warrior of Sunlight Covenant, which is, the Solaire's Covenant. You can do co-op with people, which is a way that you would be able to get the I can't remember the name of the coins, but it's a certain kind of coin you have to get. It might be copper coin. No, it's not copper coins. I can't remember. But anyway, the certain types of coins that you get from that, you can also get from, I think the easiest way to do it is killing the chaos bugs in the tunnel that goes to Easlith, the back way. If you go in there and you can kill those, they have a pretty low drop rate, but you got like 6 or 9 of them that you can kill, and if you go from the Daughter of Chaos bonfire, take the elevator down that's right next to it, then you can just run. I mean, it takes you right down to just above the fire sage room, and you just drop down, go down in the tunnel, and then you kill the things, turn around, then go back, rinse and repeat until you get all you need. And you need, like, I think a total of 10 of them in order to get up to rank 1 or 2. It might be 20 total. I can't remember exactly. But anyway, the point is that it doesn't take, it's a little bit of grinding, but it wasn't that bad. That one was pretty simple. But then there was, let's see here. Daughter of Chaos one is pretty easy. In fact, I think she only gives you 1 spell, and you just have to I think, do 20 humanity. Might even only be 10 humanity for the initial thing. 20 humanity is what you need in order to be able to open the door to the shortcut to Easlith. But you can grind humanity pretty easily if you don't already have enough. And realistically, if you are okay with using the duplication, you can very easily get humanity just doing that. That's the easiest way to do it. But if you want to grind it out, it's not a hard grind. And then probably one of the more annoying ones, at least until I found the easiest way to do it, is the Dark Moon Blade Covenant, because the specific item that you need a total of 10, and the way that you're normally supposed to get them is you invade the worlds of players that have either that have like broken covenants or like killed Gwyneth or whatever her name is, the big chick at the top of Honor Londo, the one that makes it light there. People who have killed her in that world, because if you kill her, it actually makes all of Honor Londo dark, which is interesting. But anyway, if you invade those kinds of worlds, or if you go into like fighting Lautrec after he kills the Firelink Shrine Firekeeper, things like that will get you these blue things. I can't remember what they're called. So that's the annoying way to do it, especially because I tried doing that initially. It wouldn't get me into anybody's world. Like, it wasn't working at all. But you can grind them out from in the Painted World, Ariamis. If you go in there, there's those weird crow things with, the ones that like the harpy things that like come down and they attack you. If you kill those, they have a chance to drop that item. And so there's like a spot right near the beginning, the tower, that you can just walk up, and 2 of them will come down to you. And you can grind that out pretty fast. It didn't take me super long to get what I needed for that. And then the Chaos Servant one, you need the Eyes of Death, which you get from the basilisks. So those frog things down underneath in the depths, the ones in the lower level, the ones that do the curse gas at you. Yeah, those ones, if you kill those, they'll drop the Eyes of Death occasionally, and wasn't too hard to get that. So yeah, there's several covenants where you have to do some sort of grinding in order to get all of that. But once I found out at least that it was possible to get it without having to do a bunch of playthroughs to get those things, then it wasn't too bad. It was just one more thing to do. One of the more annoying things when it came to one of the miracles was there was one miracle in Hollow Lake, which is, by the, like there's that tree that you go down inside that you get to from Blighttown. The one that takes you down to where the Dragon Covenant is and everything is like, there's this big lake and then there's another Hydra down there. And it's just kind of a hassle to get back down there. And I missed doing it on my first new game with my character. And so it was like, I didn't realize that I had missed it until I had already started New Game Plus. And it's like, oh, I meant to do that before I went in, because it's just one more thing. Like if you already have the warp point, then it's not a problem. Just warp back there, go to the location, grab the miracle, and you're good to go. But I ended up having to do that. I completely just ran past the Hydra. I ignored it as best as I could and was able to get it. But it was just one of those things that was kind of a pain in the butt. And I think probably one of the more annoying grinding things was trying to get the Silver Knight straight sword. Because even though there's a bunch of Silver Knights all in a pretty small location, and I think that the majority of them can drop the straight swords, they're just annoying. And the drop rate is very low on that. So, but considering I've done, farming for low drop rate weapons plenty of times before in other games, between things like Final Fantasy 12, where there was like getting the Zodiac Spear that was an extremely low chance that the certain chest would appear in a certain area, or getting that one weapon from from Symphony of the Night that like auto attacks basically and is really, really nice to have, but it's like a very, very low drop rate, and I got 2 of them so that I could have one in each hand. Because it's basically just a win button. But it's like, hey, if you're willing to take the time to grind for these very difficult to get swords because of how much grinding it takes, I think you deserve to have that win button. It's like, it takes a lot of effort unless you're extremely lucky. So, anyway, yeah. I mean, like, I would not want to do it again, but if I was ever in a position where like someone was interested in doing it, I would definitely have some tips on how to make it as easy for them as possible, so that hopefully they wouldn't have to do more than 2 playthroughs plus going and fighting Sif again.
And I guess sort of a follow-up question, something I just thought about. So in Dark Souls 3, you don't need to do this. At least, yeah, you definitely don't have to do it. So you can always just, level up your covenants and whatnot without actually officially joining. Do you have to actually fully join a covenant in order to... Okay, so you do have to do that. Okay.
Yeah, and if you leave the covenant, then any progress you've made in that covenant is gone.
Well, okay then. Well, that's
so
definitely...
you have to plan accordingly, and that's what I had to do for this last playthrough, because I did not want to have to redo it, especially for the ones where you had to offer certain items that were not common drops.
Very nice, very nice. All right, thank you for that heads up. That's gonna be very useful then to know for future reference. Um, and then I guess, well, I guess I'm trying to remember because it's been a while since I've played Armored Core. So the boss you're referring to, is that the helicopter one, or is that a different? Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
helicopter.
okay, yeah, because I couldn't remember if that was the one or if there was like another type of boss that was present or not. But okay, so yeah, so in that case, you made it roughly as far as like I had made it, because I think I might have at most maybe gone a little bit further or not, but okay. Definitely glad that you're enjoying it though, and that it's sort of giving you, I guess what you were missing when you were trying out the Daemon X Machina demo. So definitely glad that that sort of is better at scratching that itch.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I feel like both that and Zone of the Enders do a really good job with it. But Zone of the Enders, I would want to actually go back and play the earlier ones. Armored Core, I don't really care so much because there's too many of them to go back and play. I'm just like, I mean, I wouldn't mind playing them, but if they're not easy to get on PC, I wouldn't bother. So. Plus, also, they're not, Kojima games, so I don't care as much from that standpoint. Yeah. Although I do want to mention, because although you, of course, know this, listeners won't know that you also got me Dark Souls 2, which I did install on my Steam Deck. I just haven't booted it up, and probably not going to anytime soon, even though I thought about it a couple times. And Assassin's Creed 4 on Steam. So that one, I'm kind of thinking potentially when I finish up Odyssey, I may replay Black Flag. I haven't decided if I'm going to do that right away. I mean, I'll probably replay it eventually anyway, but whether or not I would replay it right away is hard to say. But yeah, anyway.
Very good.
All right, anything else?
No, sir.
All right, so this episode is going to be a different one in that we are, unless we just have a bunch of extra time, we are not going to be talking about any news this week. There hasn't been anything all that exciting anyway, just a couple more Half-Life 3 rumors and that sort of thing. But we are going to talk about our games of the year for 2024. Let's go ahead and start with our games of the year. Now, because of the fact that we don't play as many new games and we play a lot of old games or games that are just new to us, we're going to start off with, first of all, we will talk about top 5 games that we played from 2024 that were actually released in 2024. So we'll start with that, and let's start with number 5 and work our way over from there. So, Justin, give me your number 5.
So for number 5, I have Helldivers 2. And this is the ones that released in 2024, correct?
Right.
Okay, cool. So yeah, Helldivers 2. So it's a very good game, a very great game to play with friends. I feel like the weakest point of this game is the fact that it probably is really only great if you actually play it with friends.
Yeah.
If you're playing with random people online, it's not as fun. You can definitely have fun, but it's just like the camaraderie you get is not there. But it's definitely a very solid game. Granted, granted, first off, if you're living in a country that has where PlayStation isn't selling it because of PSN requirements, you can't play it. But if you can, it does require a little bit of newer hardware to run it at an actual 60 frames per second state. But it's definitely fun to play. As you level up and you get new items, especially getting oh gosh, I can't remember what they're called, but when you get support, essentially, it definitely makes things a whole lot, well, I won't say easier, because it's very generally challenging. because even with if you have some good weapons, even if you have some good artillery, even if you have all types of stuff, even if you're playing on a 4-man squad, the fact is these are every campaign you play is still going to be challenging because of the fact that, you know, you can easily instantly get swarmed if there are a lot of, say, bugs that are coming on, because there are times where you have certain bugs that are walking around and you can try to sneak past them, but if they catch you, there's gonna be a whole swarm on you immediately. So, and that also applied to the bots as well in another sense. But all in all, it's a very solid game to play with friends. A very good multiplayer game. If you play it by yourself, like I said, it's not as fun. Even if you're like, and I definitely would recommend playing solo. Like, I don't know if you can play it by yourself, but oof, you've got to be hardcore to do that. But it's definitely a fun game, and so that is why it makes my number 5 for games of the year.
Very nice. Yeah, this game, I've always thought this looks great, and the little bit I played of Helldivers 1, after 2 launched, I really loved. It's just, but yeah, not the kind of game where you can play it solo, which is such a shame, because I wish that they would make like a solo mode that was more doable, because I mean, yes, I think this game is best experienced when you play multiplayer, but even without that, I mean, like, it's just so much fun, and I just wish that it was doable to actually complete the mission solo, because that would have gotten me to like really get into Helldivers 1, and then, you know, eventually get Helldivers 2. But I still hope to get it at some point. I just don't have any idea when that will be, because co-op games, I just don't have the time for them in general. And I definitely think this is a game that will be better if you can play it with people you can actually talk to. Because I did some of the co-op on Helldivers 1 with randoms, and it was fun, but it's definitely better if you can talk with people. So yeah. All right. So for my number 5 games of 2024, before I mention that, I have a few games that probably deserve to have honorable mentions. I don't have footage for 2 of the 3, so I'm really just going to mention one, because it ultimately made number 6 on my list. And keep in mind, I didn't play a lot of new releases that were completely new games, or that weren't games I had already played. Ghost of Tsushima technically deserves a mention, but I'm not going to bring it up specifically because of the fact that I didn't actually play it for the first time in 2024, because I had already played it on PS4, and even though I played the DLC, both the new campaign as well as the online mode for the first time in 2024, I don't quite count those. So anyway, what does deserve an honorable mention, however, is Little Kitty Big City. And it was a very short game. It was one that I was able to 100% without much difficulty. There was only like a couple things that were kind of grindy about it, but it was a fun game, and it's just a very chill kind of cat being a jerk game. Not quite as much as Untitled Goose Game, but it was still pretty fantastic. And of course, I like black cats anyway, because I've had black cats on 2 different situations, 2 different occasions. First, my cat Sushi that I had for a while, and now my cat Avocado, or Avocato as I like to call him, or as my daughter calls him, Avi. And yeah, so that one was pretty fun. But my number 5 game for the year is Persona 3 Reload. Now, the only reason why this didn't go higher up on the list is because I haven't finished the game. However, I played enough of it to where it's just, I am so impressed with this remake, because it is a remake of Persona 3, and like they took the best elements of the previous versions of Persona 3 and just turned everything up to 11. I mean, it has the style, I mean, like more style similar to what you get in like Persona 5. You know, while still having a killer soundtrack as well as some new tracks that are even better, and the visuals are amazing. It performs extremely well both on PC and on Steam Deck, where I could get a locked 60 frames per second. Even on low settings, it looks amazing on the Steam Deck, and especially on that OLED screen, it's just super impressive. But I haven't finished it, of course, because just various other games came out that sidetracked me. But I think it is well deserving. And because I played enough of Persona 3 Portable in the past, I know what to expect in terms of the story and everything. It's just a matter of getting through the rest of the game. And with all the quality of life improvements and everything else, I know that this game is well deserving of that slot. Probably even higher up if I had actually made more progress in the game. But either way, it's an incredible game. So that's what I got for number 5.
Yeah, that's good. Question. So if someone had never played Persona 3 at all, and they saw Persona 3 Portable and they also saw 3 Reload, would you recommend that they skip Portable and just jump straight into Reload instead?
Yes, 100%. I would never recommend Portable over Reload, because for one, Portable is weird, because since it was originally designed for the PSP, it doesn't have it has this weird overhead view for the majority of the game, but it not in a way that makes sense, because when you're in dungeons, you're 3D, walking around the dungeon and everything. And when you're outside of dungeons, it's just this overhead thing where all you do is you move a cursor around in this weird overhead view to look at people. It's bizarre. And the only thing I think 3 has over this version is that it has the option for a female protagonist, because you can do either the male or the female, and it does change how characters interact with you and stuff, which is pretty cool. But otherwise, I don't see any advantage to going with the portable version, because this one is just better in every way.
Okay. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to ask you about the other thing that was in Portable that wasn't in Reload, and wondering if that had any sort of major impact to the game or not. So I'm glad that, if someone got Reload, they wouldn't be missing out on too much there.
Yeah, and realistically on PC, there actually is a mod for a female character. So on PC, at least, you would have the option to do that, just not on any of the other versions.
Okay. Well, I guess then technically I'll look for a good sale on Reload, since I have 3 Portable, but I haven't started that one yet. So I probably will just, eventually down the line get Reload and start that one then.
Yeah, do that for sure. It's so much better in every way. But yeah. All right, give me your number 4.
So number 4 for me is going to be Gundam Breaker 4. And this is sort of the Gundam game I had been looking for, and partially due to the fact that there hasn't really been a Gundam game, at least on PC, that has been good. And I remember playing a Gundam game back on, I think it was either the PS2 or PS3 at a friend's house, and I was thinking, wow, this is a very good game. This is something that I sort of would really like to play. But outside of that, I mean, even when I was only playing on Nintendo, there weren't any games for that, and the ones that were similar to those games on PS2 and PS3 were only available in Japan, which was a shame. So years later, going to PC and then waiting for a Gundam game to come by that isn't a strategy game, or isn't the abysmal, I can't remember what the game was, but there was a game that was there, and it was people didn't like it, fans didn't like it, and then to get a game that is sort of what people did want and expect, and it's great, and I'm definitely enjoyed what I played of it. It's definitely got a lot of customization, and I feel like the controls and all the stuff you can do definitely is a step up from when I played Daemon X Machina. I mean, don't get me wrong, Daemon X Machina had a lot of customization, but because of the fact that the controls, there's so much more you can do in combat, and how you use your weapons in Gundam Breakers really takes up to the next level. So even though, I mean, granted, definitely agree that there's also way more customization with what you can do in Gundam Breakers as well. But yeah, it's definitely a very solid experience, and I'm glad that I got it when I did, especially with the collector's edition. And if you're a fan of Gundams, and also especially if you like building the Gundam Gunpla models, like that's also something that I enjoy as well. This is definitely something that you should check out, because it's definitely a very good love letter for people who enjoy the older, I would say, Gundam Breaker games, but then also just for fans of building Gundam models as well, because there's so much you can do there, and they've given a lot of options for that. So that is why this is my number 4 for Game of the Year.
Very nice. Yeah, I'm always interested in a good mech game, and this one looks like it would probably be one I would enjoy. So, but yeah, good stuff. All right, my number 4 for this year of the new releases for the year, if I can find my list here, is where are you hiding? There we go. Animal Well. So this one, of course, was a very good Metroidvania. The only clip that's playing here is just the dogs chasing the Frisbee back and forth, because it's just fantastic. But yeah, like I really, really liked this game. The only reason why it didn't go higher up on my list was simply because, I mean, well, between there being other great games this year, and other things, it's mostly just because of the fact that I didn't feel like I could 100% complete it, because there were just a couple things that were a bit too annoying to try to do, particularly just one of the really odd puzzles that required not touching the ground for a while in order to get to one of the collectibles. And I was just like, okay, I'm good. I'm done. So, but even still, the game was excellent. It is something that anyone can play. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's rated E. There's nothing, no objectionable content I can think of. Nothing that's bad at all. I mean, it's very much a guide yourself kind of game, but it's a really solid game. I really enjoyed it, and it deserved the praise that it got. It's great on Switch too. So that is my number 4 for the year, or rather my number 4 of new releases for the year.
Yeah, that's definitely one I still need to eventually check out, because it's a Metroidvania game, and you enjoy them, I enjoy them, so it's definitely something which we both can't get enough of. So it's good. It's good to also have something that also is different in the fact that it's sort of a puzzle solver as well. So it does something unique to the formula.
All right, what's your number 3?
Number 3 is going to be Halls of Torment. Now this game, I got this sort of in the midst of playing several other Vampire Survivor clones, and this one really stood out from a lot of them because of the fact that it sort of really did something different, and namely the fact that this is a game which sort of plays like an actual level in a game, because of the fact that while you are fighting against the clock to try and get to the end, you still are facing bosses, and at the end you do have to make sure you are equipped to face the final boss of that level. And the aesthetics are very reminiscent of an older Diablo game, which those look good. So I really like that art style as well. But playing the game from its early access release to its final 1.0 release, there definitely was a lot of content added in there that made it a worthwhile journey. And I mean, if you didn't play it in early access, that's fine. And I think that even if you just played from the full release, it's still a very phenomenal game. And there definitely was a whole lot of effort put into it. And I mean, even now, even after getting all of the stuff early on and maxing out everything I possibly could, the new arena they added is very challenging to the point where I still haven't beaten it yet, and it probably will take me a lot of effort in trying to even figure out what new things I can get from the full release as well, because there definitely were other things added in there. So trying to just like get all that straightened out and trying to learn new things, and also, unlike other Survivors clones, this one actually allows you, for each new ability you get, there are branching paths you can technically make, so you can customize your abilities and, you know, change how they perform, or see like if you want to deal more damage, or if you at the risk of, say, the area of effect, or if you want to increase the rate of your attack at the expense of the damage you deal. There's just like so much stuff you can customize to try to make the best build you can, even try to mix and match certain things. So I really enjoy how this sort of separates itself and makes itself its own sort of game that's not just another Vampire Survivors clone, which is another game I really enjoyed. So that's why this is my number 3 game of the year that is new for 2024.
Very nice. Yeah, I love the aesthetic of this game so much. It just looks so great. But yeah, I like these types of games are ones where I feel like I could definitely get hooked on them if I gave myself a chance to get into them. But I also just don't really want to get into it, because the type of gameplay also seems like it would be something where I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if I would want to stick with something like this. So that's the only reason why I haven't done this, or like Vampire Survivors, that sort of thing. But I definitely love how it looks, at least. All right, so my number 3 for new releases this year is Horizon Forbidden West. Now, I have not finished the game, of course. It's another one that I got sidetracked while playing it, but I was very heavily invested in it when I was playing it, and I'm hoping to get back to it in 2025 and play through the rest of it. But I mean, it is a really solid game. I played it for the first time in 2024 because I did not get it on PS4, and of course I obviously didn't have a PS5, so I couldn't play it there. But I'm glad I waited. What I played I really enjoyed, and I definitely want to get back to it. I just know the last time I tried to, I was so rusty that I was not doing well at all, and so I gave up on sticking with it. But it's possible that when I finish it, that it may be something where it would move down lower in my list. But as of right now, with the time I put into it and how much I enjoyed it, I feel like it definitely deserves the number 3 spot, despite having not finished it.
Very good. Yeah. I mean, I definitely remember, throughout the year, mentioning when you're playing it, how much you really enjoyed the improvements that it had over the original game. And then just, even if the story wasn't necessarily as good as the first one, the gameplay was just very solid, and, did a lot of stuff there. So I'm glad that you've enjoyed this one. And I'm trying to decide if I will get to it eventually. I still haven't even really touched the first one, so I'd have to finish that one and then get in to see if I want to go ahead and jump into Forbidden West.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, I think that it's worth playing the first one if you're going to try to get into it. The first one's good, and I thought it was good overall. The second one is better in terms of gameplay, makes several quality of life improvements, but the first one is still a very good game. It's just, to me, the story, at least in the first one, was very derivative. Like, it was just, I had seen the tropes enough to where it wasn't anything that blew my mind, but the gameplay was solid, and the second one is even better from that standpoint. So, yeah, good stuff. All right, your number 2 for new releases this year.
My number 2 for new release is going to be Ghost of Tsushima. Now, this is a game that I really wanted to play, and it's a game that I had wanted to be ported to PC. And, eventually it was. And so I got the game, and it's so much better than I initially would have thought. And it's also, in a sense, also different, because to me, it sort of kind of feels like, in a sense, a combination of an older Assassin's Creed game, pre RPG style, because of the fact that, you do have the stealth, and you have the combat that isn't dependent on how much damage you deal, but just more so your skill and whatnot. But it still has some very much well thought out improvements overall. And I really like the fact that you can sort of also decide how you want to engage certain enemy camps, and also just enemies in general, whether you want to be completely stealthy about it, or if you want to just go in full samurai and just take them out one-on-one. And because of the fact that the combat each enemy has its own sort of weakness, you do have to, pay attention to the enemies you face and know, okay, this enemy has a spear, I need to use this stance, or this enemy has a sword, this enemy has a shield. It really makes things interesting, and it keeps things, you're always sort of on your toes, because while technically it's easy if you know what stance beats what and how it's, how to combat them, it still requires your reflexes and just in general paying attention to enemies as well, because several enemies can be attacking you from one direction and another enemy could be coming in from behind you. So there's so much variety there that makes it very fun. And I haven't finished the game yet, but it definitely has been a worthwhile experience thus far, and I really want to finish this game because from what I played, it's been great. And I probably, I feel like I probably might be a minority here, but I really enjoyed also playing the game with the Japanese dub. So just because it felt a little more authentic to me for the period and whatnot. But overall, though, it's been a very great game, and I'm so glad this got ported over to PC.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Ghost of Tsushima, the only reason why it's not in my list is because of the fact that I already completed the story on PS4. It would definitely be in my list otherwise, because it is an excellent game, and I absolutely love it. I think Sucker Punch did a great job, as they have with all of their other games, and it's one that eventually I want to get back to, like doing the Legends mode and see if I can find some people to play with so that I could get the remaining achievements for the game. And of course I, eventually need to go back to New Game Plus as well, but it's not like a high priority because I've done, I already 100%ed the game on a new game otherwise. But yeah, it's a great game, really great game. And I'm glad as well that it got ported to PC, that it ran well enough for me, at least on the Steam Deck. And it really is just a stellar game. So, very good choice. All right, my number 2 game of the year. This one's might come across a little bit controversial, but hear me out. So, Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. Now, the reason why I say this might come across as a little controversial is because it is, at least in part, the same game that it was for the Switch. But because it has an entirely new campaign that is a new full-length campaign and adds a bunch of quality of life improvements, it made my number 2 slot. Now, I did not finish the game. I still have quite a bit left to do before I would be finished with the game. So putting it in number 2 when I haven't gotten that far into it, or, at least not far enough to be able to say definitively, oh, this is better. The thing is that, I didn't play these games for the story anyway, because the first game's story was kind of typical to me for a lot of these JRPGs. But the gameplay is so good on so many levels. I mean, it has not only the great turn-based combat, the press turn system that just works extremely well, but it also has phenomenal soundtrack. And the exploration is just, it's amazing. I mean, it's one of the things that makes me love this game so very much, is because it has that great balance of all those different things. And then to top it all off, because this is a port that was originally on the Switch, it performs extremely well both on PC and on Steam Deck. I can get a locked 60 frames per second on Steam Deck. On PC, I can get a near locked 240 frames per second. And it plays so incredibly well. And even though I haven't played in a couple months now, because last time I played was probably late October when I played, a little bit after after I did my stack up stream. It's still something that I'm planning to get back to and hoping to get through this year the rest of the way, because it's that good. And the news story has been interesting so far. I mean, I don't know exactly where it's going with everything. I still don't think the story is going to be the highlight for me, but it's just the music and the gameplay. I mean, the gameplay and the music both that will easily keep me interested in this game, despite the times that I've gotten sidetracked by other things. So, yep.
Okay, so I guess, well, I really don't know how to phrase this because of the fact that this feels very contextual, but why would you, I guess, what differences between this and, say, Persona would cause you to rank this above Persona? Because I haven't played either game, so I don't know like what differences there are between Shin Megami Tensei and Persona. What reason would you say you would rank this one above Persona?
Well, partially because I've gotten, I'm not sure. I think I'm probably about the same amount through the game. But I think part of it is because Persona, for one, the story is very familiar because I've already done most of the story on Persona 3 Portable. I mean, I was like right at the end. But also because of the fact that this one has the exploration, which Persona does not. And even though Persona has an excellent soundtrack, I think I like Shin Megami Tensei's better because of the fact that mostly because there's more environmental themes, and since you spend a lot of time running around the environment and everything, and hearing the music, it's phenomenal. I mean, both games are super good, but I think that in terms of gameplay, I like Shin Megami Tensei better, just because it does have. I mean, it's very different because Persona, you have. You have like the dungeon exploration, which is pretty light on exploration because you're not doing any platforming or getting much of any collectibles other than the occasional treasure chest. But then you're also doing a lot of stuff with like Social Link and doing various activities to raise your character's like personal stats like charm and intelligence and stuff like that. Whereas with Shin Megami Tensei, you're not doing any of the social stuff. It's all just straight JRPG. You're fighting monsters, you're fusing monsters, you're leveling up, and then you can explore the environments, and there's collectibles to find, and the music is amazing, and there's some platforming here and there, and I'd say most of the like platforming stuff is entirely optional. It's basically just if you want to get the collectibles, which I do. But yeah, I think that's the main thing, is just really in terms of gameplay. I think this one is one that stuck with me a bit more. And Persona 3 Reload, as great as it is much more familiar ground, whereas this one's a little bit less so. And there's the exploration really makes it go a step above.
Okay. Thank you. That definitely sort of helps me out there, especially with trying to figure out eventually maybe if I want to get into Shin Megami Tensei and sort of knowing which I would want to jump into first.
Yeah, I mean between the two, like it really just depends on what kind of gameplay experience you want. I mean, like if I had to choose between for recommending to someone who has played neither, that's really hard. I think it depends on whether you care more about having interesting characters and interesting story and learning about those characters and all that, or if you care more about just pure gameplay and exploration. Because if you like gameplay and exploration more, then Shin Megami Tensei 5 is what I have to recommend. But if you like the other stuff better, then Persona would be it. And it would have to be like, I mean, I personally, I'm biased. I think Persona 4 Golden is the best place to start because it's more dated, but it's also such an excellent game. And I thought that it was just a great place to start, despite the way that the game is very slow in the beginning, because it takes a couple hours to get to any real action. But once you get past that, it's just really, really great. Then, you have both Persona 5 Royal and Persona 3 Reload that have the best of both of those games with the style and the music and everything. And it's just, they're also great. I would say the only thing I would definitely say, regardless of where you would start with Persona, because you could really do any of those three. It's just, I think Persona 4 Golden would be harder to go back to. That's part of why I'd recommend starting with that. I would definitely say, while any one of those three would be a good idea if you were doing Persona, for Shin Megami Tensei, Vengeance is your place to start. It doesn't matter which of the stories you do, either one is fine. But the gameplay is just, it's better than the previous Shin Megami Tensei games, as far as I'm concerned. At least because of the fact that it has the exploration.
Okay.
All right, give me your number 2 of the new releases.
So my top release
number 1. Yes, number 1.
So my top release for 2024 is going to be Palworld. Now, when I first heard about the game, I heard about the memes. It's Pokemon with guns, and I bought it partially because of that. But playing through the game, it definitely was its own very solid experience, where I think that comparing it with Pokemon and saying it's Pokemon with guns is kind of underselling it, because there's more to do than just collect your own sort of Pokemon. And I mean, I also feel like this is something where it sort of fails me with other types of resource management games. I feel like this one is light enough where, even though there's a lot of stuff you can do with managing your base and stuff, the fact that you don't necessarily have to be worrying about every single aspect of it and trying to be as efficient as possible, which you can definitely do in this game. You can definitely, I've seen people try to make very elaborate bases. You don't necessarily have to do that. You can make a simple, self-sufficient base, come back, get whatever supplies you need, or, make new supplies and go about your business. Combat is definitely, pretty basic, but it's still fun. And I feel like, because of the aspect you would have from Breath of the Wild, where there's a heavy emphasis on exploration, that's pretty much the majority of what I've been playing with the game, because I've always been trying to go around, trying to look at new areas, trying to, especially when I get better gear with like grappling, with my grappling gun, or also with my glider, just being able to try to figure out like, okay, what's over here? Are there any secrets over here? Are there any new pals over here that I can find? Stuff like that. And even sort of like enemy bases, enemy camps. It's all been pretty much the game for me personally. It's just been explore, and just come across enemies here and there and try to get new pals. But I still haven't even completed the full map yet, just because I'm partially still under leveled for a lot of stuff I need to do, and also need to get new gear. But also because even in the areas that I've been exploring in, there are still certain nooks and crannies where there are things I haven't found yet, that I'm still trying to get to. And with the advent of the Faebreak DLC, or not really DLC, but updates, I've now encountered new types of sort of mini bosses. There might be more stuff coming, but for right now, I've just been seeing these mini bosses here and there. I feel like right now I'm kind of over leveled for most of them because they go down pretty quickly. And even for a couple of them, I really didn't even do anything. I just let my pals take care of them. But I will say though, the one thing that kind of is the weakness in the game so far is the enemy AI, or at least for the basic enemies and any enemy that isn't a tower boss, because enemy AIs, they aren't really the smartest knife in the in the chest, and some enemies will just say get stuck on something, and it's a bit. I mean, you can use that to your advantage, but sometimes you're like, you want the enemies to put up a bit more of a fight. So that's probably one of the things I would say is the weakest aspect. I mean, of course, technically the game is still is in early access, and there's still, I think we're still in technically the 0.2 version or something like that. So we have a ways to go until the full release, but I feel like that's something that can definitely be worked on. And I feel like partially this is because of Unreal Engine. There are some stutters here and there, but overall, I'm getting a pretty much consistent 60 FPS, and I mean I can even get higher into like the 80s. But I mean, all in all, even if you play on the game on a sort of mixture of low and medium, you can still get like 60 FPS. But I feel like you could probably get better if it wasn't in Unreal Engine 5. But overall, though, it's just been, this is a game where I consider a sort of a just game where you just sink a bunch of time into it. So similar to me with like Stardew Valley, because there's no real objective to the game. So it's sort of like you can do whatever you want. I mean, of course, you can go to the towers, and they do have they have objectives listed, but you don't necessarily have to go and do it in that sense. So it is sort of like Breath of the Wild, where there is something to do, but you don't necessarily have to go out and do it, and you don't have to do it when the game tells you to. So because of that, that's sort of why it's my number one game of the year of new releases.
Very nice. Yeah. What was I going to say about this game? Oh, one thing I noticed in the animations. Am I seeing correctly that they've already changed the Pokeball animation after they lost that lawsuit? Or the
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that actually was something that I forgot about at first, and then it wasn't until I was playing the game I realized, oh yeah, that's right. They they changed that animation. But it's not something that's like too distracting, but
Right.
if you have been playing the game before, then you will definitely notice that change.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad that they came up with something else that works, because it's definitely completely different now, and still remains the same game otherwise. So that's good. I'm very glad about that. All right, so my game of the year in terms of just new releases is God of War Ragnarok. Now, this one is sort of cheating because it did come out on PS4 previously, and I played it a bunch on PS4, but I never finished it. And so when I started playing it on PC, I had to start from scratch, but I did everything in the game. I did all of the base game achievements, including all optional boss fights, and then I did everything in Valhalla, which of course is completely side content that is not required, not part of the main game. And it's just a fantastic game. I really, really loved this game. And I'm not sure, it's really hard for me to say if I like this one better or if I like 2018 better, because both are extremely good. There's definitely quality of life improvements in this one over the previous game, but it's not so drastic to where I feel like you're missing it. I mean, like, that there's any reason not to play 2018. But yeah, it's just a really, really good game. And of course, it was an excellent PC port. Steam Deck performance was kind of mixed at times. Like, there was times where it was solid 40 frames per second, and then other times where we were dropped down to 27. And that was never pleasant. But for some general stuff, it was fine. And I ended up playing it probably a lot more on PC than I played on Steam Deck. And I thoroughly enjoyed this game. So yeah, it is my game of the year for new releases.
Very nice, very nice. And I know that you mentioned before that one of the reasons why 2018 and I guess to a degree Ragnarok were so beloved by you because of the fact that the fact that Kratos is now a dad and stuff, and so that sort of resonated with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, which one would you say is better in that aspect?
Well, I mean, I think that maybe the first one's a little more relatable because my kids are closer to that age. But I mean, both of them deal a lot with him being a father, first just having to learn how to raise his son, particularly because he hasn't been super involved with his son's life entirely just because of the way he was. But the second one is much more his son coming of age and him, preparing his son to be on his own, as he's in his teen years and everything. And but then there's a lot more stuff to the story and everything. But just I love these games. They're so great, and I understand people's criticisms of them. And not that they're invalid criticisms, they're just not things that bothered me. But of course, what also is a great thing about this game is that it is a Metroidvania, which the earlier God of War games, since 2018, were not Metroidvanias. So it started with 2018 was a Metroidvania, and it's was that way with Ragnarok as well. And definitely whenever the next one comes out, at least whenever it comes to PC, it will be a day one purchase for me. With little to no doubt on that front. As long as they keep up the same level of actual quality and not that quality that is so often referenced. But yeah.
And I guess one last question regarding that. So what is something you would actually like to see in the next installment?
Well, I guess one thing, this is more of just like a general thing. I would like them to make it so that you can completely turn off the puzzle hints, because while you could turn them off with like one of the characters, then one of the other characters would just give you hints super fast. And it was really, really annoying because in most cases when they were giving me hints, I wasn't even starting on the puzzle. Like I was still looking around, seeing if there was other stuff in the environment before I went into the puzzle. Because most of the time the puzzles were not challenging. I mean, I think I might have come across like one where I was stumped initially, a couple here or there, but for the most part, it's just, I don't really want the help with the puzzles. I just want to figure them out on my own. So that was the only thing. But otherwise, I think, I mean, it's hard to say. I wouldn't mind seeing a new setting, but based on the way things went with Valhalla, I don't know how all that's supposed to work. Because like they did say that the Norse mythology, the Norse thing for Kratos is over now, but I honestly don't know how, from a story perspective, particularly with how things worked on the with Valhalla, how they could make it the end of the Norse entirely. So I don't know how that works.
Interesting. Have they come out and said yet what the next setting is going to be?
No. My guess is the earliest we would hear anything about anything. The earliest we would hear anything about that would probably be like 2026. Because I highly doubt we'd hear anything earlier than that. And it may even be longer, depending on. Well, a lot of it depends on whether they're using the same engine. Because if they're still using the same engine, then it could come out a lot faster. But pretty much this one was like they made the additional content that couldn't make it into the original game, but it didn't feel like it was just, this is just DLC. It's more like this is a lot of new content, and it was its own game while at the same time, being very much built on the bones of the previous one.
Okay, very good.
All right, now we get to go into our top 5 of the games that were new to us for 2024. So go ahead and start us off with your number 5.
So number 5 for me is going to be Katana Zero. And I think you described this very perfectly. It is 2D Ghost Runner, just because of the fact that you go through each level, and even within the level, there's still special each room you have to go through. You have to get through it completely perfectly, and if you get hit once, you are dead and have to retry it. So it's very interesting in that perspective, and I think that even though it's well, I really don't want to spoil anything here, because there's a real reason as to why you die and retry the level over and over again, which when you're playing the game you don't see it, but at the end of the game you're like, that makes so much sense. And it's brilliant too, because you also replay the level once you've beaten it, and it's so great in that aspect. And there are several things in the game itself where it can sort of change, or at least 2 levels in particular, they change how the objectives of the mission, as to whether you need to be completely stealthy or if you just need to wipe out everyone in the level. And so it's very interesting in that aspect. And there are other aspects that I think change a couple levels, depending on when you see your psychiatrist, or I'm sorry, your therapist, that can, based on your conversations, it can influence how the next level plays out, which I find to be interesting, and it gives a little bit of replayability, especially to the fact that the game is really short. I think you can probably beat it in about 3 hours or so. There is also a hard mode, which, after playing some of the content and the base game and dying several times in certain spots, I shudder to think about how hard it could really be, since you only have 1 hit before you die. But overall, though, it's just a nice, fun game. And I mean, played it primarily on deck, so it works there. And yeah, no other complaints about it, but very good game.
Yeah, this is a game I definitely want to play eventually. I don't think I ever added it to my wish list. I should do that, but yeah, it looks great. And of course, obviously, because I love Ghost Runner, and do a 2D stylistic game with the platforming as well. It's pretty great. I mean, the only thing that's really missing, at least from what I've seen of the gameplay footage, is the parkour stuff that you get in Ghost Runner, but it's the 3D parkour stuff that's more fun than anything else, though. I guess it would still be fun in 2D. But yeah. Good stuff. All right, my number 5 for games new to me for the year. Actually, before I get into that, I have to give honorable mentions because it's just absolutely necessary. So first of all, I have to say Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. The only reason why this will not make the list in the top 5 is simply because of the fact that I played it a bunch last year and it was already on my list for last year. So I did actually play, I think, probably about the same amount in 2024 as I played in 2023. And of course, I completed it I can't remember how far I got into it in 2023. I don't think I'd finished the story yet. I finished the story in 2024, though, as well as all the achievements. And it was actually my most played game for 2024, with 13% of my playtime, despite being back in January that I last played it. So, but yes, it deserves an honorable mention simply because of that. It is an amazing game. Just can't quite make the list since it made my list last year. But I do have one other honorable mention, and I don't have any gameplay for it at the moment. Probably going to get some recorded tomorrow, but I do want to mention The Messenger. And The Messenger is an excellent game. What I played of it, it's just I fell off mostly because there was just that one challenge I wanted to complete of getting through that cave in the dark, and I just haven't taken the time to go through that, because otherwise I probably would have kept playing the game. It was just that one challenge that I was like, I want to get this completed. I'm determined. I must do it. But anyway, so my actual number 5 is Dark Souls 3. And the main reason why it ended up as low as number 5 was really just because of the struggles I had with this game, and because ultimately I think I just kind of ruined the game for myself by cheesing as many bosses as I did. But it still was an excellent game, and I know I will go back to it. There's a good chance that sometime this year I will go back and do the DLC. Who knows, maybe even a new game plus, but right now the only thing I know for sure is that I did really enjoy it overall. I just it wasn't quite as high up on my list as it would have been had I not cheesed so many bosses, and perhaps if this had been my first Souls game, it probably would have been more so higher up on my list. So, but yes, still an excellent game. One I still highly recommend for anyone who wants to try out the Souls genre. Just knowing that it's hard. It is a hard game. So, yeah. That's what I got for that.
Very good. I am curious to see what the rest of the games on this list for you are, considering the fact that, well, granted, you stated there was that technicality, but I still would be interested in knowing, like, if Metal Gear Solid 5 was only an honorable mention. I'm very curious to know what the other picks you have on your list are.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's only an honorable mention because of the fact that it was on my list last year, and otherwise it would have definitely made the top 5. It's just the fact that I feel like it's not fair for me to include it 2 years in a row just because I started it in 2023 and then finished it in 2024.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, so go ahead and give me your number 4.
Number 4 for me is going to be 9 Years of Shadows. This is a very good Metroidvania game. In many aspects, it's more, I guess you could say, Castlevania than Metroid, just because of the fantasy elements. One thing that I would say is sort of the weaker point is the fact that there is a severe lack of backtracking unless you're trying to actually get certain or trying to get every single item in the game. So there's really no reason for you to go back to an area you've already gone to, which kind of is, even though, certain areas in Metroidvania games, you only go back if there's an item you need to get, or you're trying to get more of an item. There has been some sort of main reason besides that in the particular part of the game for you to go back. So it's kind of disappointing that there wasn't really a reason to go back there outside of maybe one item you might have missed, because you could technically get every item in an area of the game, and if you miss it, then you have to come back to get it, which also is another downside, is the fact that there is a lack of, not necessarily a fast travel, but there are lack of shortcuts in the game, so you can't necessarily get to one point of an area of the map and get to another point as quickly as you would like to. And consider the fact that there also are cutscenes that automatically play every time you use an elevator, it really pads out the time you could be spent just getting to where you need to go. But other than that, though, the combat, while simplistic, is fun. The main character really has Samus vibes to her, and I mean, that stoicism that Samus has, it matches her. And even in the elevator, it really reminds me of Samus in the elevator in Metroid Fusion or Metroid Zero Mission. And the art style is just very great, and I think that the pixel art is well done. So this one is my number 4 recommendation.
Very good. Yeah, definitely in my list, and I think I got that one free through Amazon Prime a little bit ago, or GOG. It's a GOG version either way, so I'll definitely check that out eventually. Have you thought at all about grabbing that physical version from Limited Run?
I did, but I decided, since I also got the through GOG, I already technically had a DRM free version, so I was content with just getting that one and calling it a day.
Fair enough. Yeah, I haven't really decided on that. I haven't looked at it apart from what I sent to you, so we'll see. Maybe. I mean, I like having the cartridges. That's my big thing. But yeah. Good stuff. But speaking of Metroidvanias, my number 4 for new to me games is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. And this was the interesting thing about this is that it's both a Metroidvania and a Souls-like. Of course, obviously, if you're playing on normal difficulty, it's nowhere near as difficult as an actual Souls game, which is what I played on. But and I think just in general, like compared especially with Dark Souls Remastered, it's definitely nowhere near that level of challenge. And actually really Dark Souls 3 for that matter. It's nowhere near the level of challenge that you have in those games. But it's a really good game. And the only like real complaint I have about the game is the fact that it doesn't have fast travel. And I mean, thankfully they did remedy that in Jedi Survivor from, the bit I played of that. And it's a great game. Like I really, really enjoyed it. I 100%ed it and, got all the achievements, and I cannot say enough good stuff about this game. And hoping to play through Jedi Survivor this year, since I have it and have already started it.
Very good. And I actually, I was going to ask you a question, but then I remembered that Fallen Order was the first game and not the second one.
Right.
So even with it being on normal mode, so like, do sort of the other aspects of a Souls like apply to the normal version as well, as far as like losing your souls when you die, or is that just like the harder?
Yeah, it is that way. You lose your souls when you die, or your experience is what you lose, and it's just until you get it back once you hit the enemy who killed you. Okay. The only time that it's not from an enemy is if you die from falling off a ledge too many times, and you don't die the first time you fall off a ledge unless your health is really low. So that aspect is definitely different from the Souls games.
Very good. Very good.
All right. Number 3, new to you.
Number 3 is going to be BioShock. This is a game that I've heard about so many times over the years and heard people play it and say it's a great game. Never touched it though, never bought it, and then happened to buy the collection, and I was like, let me give it a shot. And it really was not what I was expecting. Just because while I knew it was a first-person shooter, it sort of is also not necessarily survival horror, but there are sort of like those horror aspects to it. So it's a very interesting game, the way it's designed. But I do like the different abilities that you can use. I do like the combat as well, and also trying to navigate around the different environments to your advantage, especially with certain enemies that will come after you, and trying to decide whether you want to be stealthy in certain segments as opposed to others. And every time I see a Big Daddy, it's just a tense moment for me, and I'm just wondering, okay, what's going on, buddy? Who's the bigger threat in the situation right now? And I do need to go back though eventually and complete it, but everything I've played through it so far though has been a fantastic experience, and it makes me wonder why I didn't play this game sooner.
I'm so glad that you finally played this one, and I look forward to when you actually get through it. The big thing I wonder is, obviously I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but have you already been spoiled on the big twist of the game, or no?
Only thing that I've heard about is the fact that the sentence "would you kindly" is like a hypnotic suggestion, but that's pretty much all I know about any sort of spoiler stuff. I don't know anything else beyond that.
I mean, that's basically it, but yeah. So, but yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, like, when I heard about it and I even saw certain things like, would you kindly like pick up this item, and I think to myself like, you know what? I'm doing the thing the game wants me to do, and it's like a plot point, and I see what you did there. But yeah, it's definitely fun.
Yeah, I absolutely love this game. I might need to try like fully replaying it this year, and I've never 100%ed it, so I think I may aim for that. One thing I need to look into is achievement wise, like if it's required to, I mean, what the achievement requirements are, because if it's something where you have to like get through the game without dying, or you have to complete it on a hard difficulty or whatever, then I may or may not be interested in doing that. But I do really love this game, and I definitely I fully understand the tense aspect with the big daddies, at least the first time you played through it. After that, for me, it was never really that big of an issue because it's like I knew what to expect. But yeah, the first time, absolutely super tense. I remember when I played BioShock the first time, the first time I tried playing the demo on PC, and this was back with my original laptop that I got, where I really got heavily into PC gaming. And I remember trying to play the demo, and that spider splicer at the very beginning of the game creeped me out so much. And then because the demo goes from when you first get to Rapture up until when you first take the transport that takes you to the next area, the second area that you go to after the introductory tutorial area. And you have like all those splicers outside the thing pounding on the glass and stuff, and it's just like this is freaking me out. And I couldn't touch the game for a long time, and it was only the demo that I had, but I got through the demo, and then I was just like, I don't even want to touch this game. But then later on, I think it was probably actually maybe listening to Married to the Games and hearing them talk about BioShock Infinite, and that just is kind of like, I think if I give BioShock another try, I could get past the aspects of me being scared. And sure enough, when I did, I ended up absolutely loving the game. And then I went straight into Infinite first, because even though it's the third game, 2 is technically not canon. And furthermore, I also thought it was a good idea to get out of Rapture for a little bit before I went back to 2. So went through Infinite, loved that, and then went back to 2. And while the story I thought was weaker, the gameplay and the combat was better than 1. And I think it has the best combat of the 3 games. But it was also, cooler to go back to Rapture after being away from it for quite a while, because Columbia is such a different setting in Infinite compared with Rapture. Because it's like, Rapture, it's dark and, it's under the ocean, under the sea. And then you have Columbia that's above the clouds. It's like such a drastic difference in the setting, bright and above the clouds and everything. But anyway, I've gushed enough about BioShock. I love these games, and I'm really glad that you played it, and I hope that you are able to finish it this year. All right, so let's see, we were on number 3?
3.
Yep, okay. So my number 3 of new to me games for this year is the Castlevania Advance Collection. Unfortunately, I don't have any more of my footage right now. I'll probably try to get some footage recorded from Harmony of Dissonance, because that was my favorite of the 3 games. But I loved this collection. It was so great. I'm so glad that I got past my initial difficulties with Circle of the Moon, because there definitely were some difficulties, because it's a lot more janky of the 3. But yeah, of course, once I got past that, I really enjoyed the game. And then Harmony of Dissonance, I loved so much. And then Aria of Sorrow was also great. And this collection was such a pleasant surprise. I mean, I guess it wasn't really a surprise, because I played enough other Castlevania stuff to where I knew that it would be good. But also because of the fact that, it's a Metroidvania. I mean, well, it's a Castlevania game, so I knew I would enjoy it from that standpoint. But yeah, it's just like, especially Harmony of Dissonance, because it just basically felt like a GBA version of Symphony of the Night. And I love these games. They're so great. And Circle of the Moon is definitely my least favorite of the 3. It's like Harmony of Distance is definitely at the very top of those three, followed by Aria of Sorrow as a close second, and then Circle of the Moon's at the bottom. But they're still all great. So that is definitely my number 3 new to me game for 2024.
Yeah, that definitely is a great collection of games, and I agree that Circle of the Moon definitely has quite a bit of jank to it, which, I feel like it kind of borrowed from the NES titles, just because of the way the character moves. But Aria and Harmony of Dissonance were definitely great, and when I eventually get to those two games, I will have to decide which one I prefer more, because just off of memory, I feel like I remembered liking Aria more, but it might depend on when I actually get back to those games and seeing which one I actually do prefer now. But yeah, that's definitely a great collection, and I'm very glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, the only thing I have to say about Harmony of Dissonance that I don't like as much is that it is very, very easy. But it was really just like a breath of fresh air after Circle of the Moon, because Circle of the Moon was a pretty hard game, and Harmony of Dissonance was super great, and I think I'm definitely going to be recording footage from that to add to this, because the only footage I had available was the footage you sent me when you were playing Circle of the Moon. So it's like, okay, well, because I don't have any more of my Castlevania footage at the moment, but yeah, still a very good game. It's just that it's not as good as the other two. So yes. All right, so that was number 3. So what is your number 2?
My number 2 is going to be Spider-Man Remastered. After playing several Spider-Man games throughout the years, primarily the ones that come to mind, Spider-Man 2 on GameCube and Ultimate Spider-Man, which I played later on the PC version. I really went to it. While those were great Spider-Man games, Remastered really did a great job at revamping things, because I thought to myself, people praised the web slinging in Spider-Man 2018, and I thought, what's the big deal? What does this game do that we haven't already seen before in Spider-Man games? And then playing it the game, and I thought, okay, they might have had a point here. This is pretty solid. But I think that so much of the game is just fun, which I feel like is the biggest thing about this. Is it's fun. Playing as Spider-Man is great. Traversing through New York with your webs is great. The combat is great. It's just so much fun, and the fact that so many details, and I really love the Easter eggs too, because if you're someone who's been reading the comics for a long time, you see stuff in the Easter eggs that are scattered out, and you think, hey, I know that. Like, that's a great callback to this moment or this particular, comic arc, and you're thinking, yeah, I really love that they did this. And so it felt like a lot of labor of love. Now, granted, I'm not a fan of the stealth elements for, MJ and Miles. I felt like that was
right.
Those sections are the slowest parts of the game and are kind of a bog to get through. But when you're not playing as them, the game is great, and it just enjoyed so much. And it is definitely I guess you could say, the Spider-Man game I've wanted to play, or the Spider-Man game that I never knew I wanted until playing it now. So it's definitely great. This is also another game, sadly, that I still have to complete, but from what I've gone through with it, it just has been a phenomenal experience.
Totally agree on this game. It is excellent, and it is such a shame that they completely screwed up the story for the second one, because I would happily have gotten the second one if they hadn't screwed up the story so royally and doubled down on Mary Jane. But they did, and so they're not getting my money. They're not getting a dime from me on that. And it's just too bad. But the great thing is that Spider-Man Remastered is an excellent game, and apart from a couple of story elements, Miles Morales is also an excellent game. And I know you're not a fan of Miles Morales because you're so racist, being the black man of the cast who doesn't like the black man. But yeah, great games. So good stuff. Okay. Mine, so that was number 2? Yeah, number 2. Okay, so my number 2 of new to me games for this year is... Wait, no. That was number 3. Wasn't that? Yeah, that was number...
That was number 2.
What's that? Wait a second. Did we skip one?
I've said 4 so far.
Let me double check my list here. Oh, you know what? I'm looking at the wrong list because we're on, that's right, new to us games for the year. All right. So sorry, my list just got crossed in my brain. Oh, wait. That's what happened.
Oh, no.
Dark Souls 3 actually was number 6 for me. So, it was supposed to be an honorable mention, but okay. So my actual, I guess I'll do my number 3 and number 2 because I messed that up. So my number 3 is Sea of Stars. And the footage I have here is just like some random footage I had from earlier this year, but I definitely really enjoyed the game. It was a good homage to Chrono Trigger, which of course is my favorite game of all time. While I definitely don't think it was as good as Chrono Trigger, it still was a really excellent game, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to playing the free DLC later this year when that comes out. And yeah, I mean, great art style, great music. Of course, knowing that it's also connected to The Messenger, being in the same universe. I can't remember which one's supposed to be first. I think The Messenger takes place after, if I remember correctly. But anyway, just a really, really excellent RPG. And for any, like things that I don't like as much about it, it's probably more just because I'm comparing it so much to Chrono Trigger, which to me is as close to a perfect game as you can get. But it really is just an unbelievably excellent game. It's a beautiful looking game. It runs well. It plays extremely well. Has great music, and the story was really good too. I liked the story quite a lot. Yeah, it was just a very great game. So that's my number 3. And I guess I'll just go straight into my number 2, and then we can come back if you have any comments on that. So my number 2 new to me game is Death Stranding. And Kojima fanboying aside, this game really surprised me at just how deep it was in terms of just the gameplay and everything else. And it shouldn't have surprised me because Kojima does such a great job with making the gameplay really deep in these games. But it's like I knew it was going to be very different from the Phantom Pain. But at the same time, it's also just, in some ways, it's just as good. I mean, it's hard to explain because they're such different games, but there's so much depth to how this game is played. And I just was completely blown away by this game. And this is one that more likely than not this year, I'm going to attempt to get all of the remaining achievements so that I can just do that, because I loved the game that much. I fell off because more of the stuff I have left is just grindy stuff, but I'm sure at some point this year I will be working on that again because it is that great of a game. And I'm not really sure what else to say. I mean, I guess the big thing is, as I will reiterate, this is not a walking simulator. And if other games that, I mean, if you're going to call it a walking simulator, this is the standard that all other walking simulators should live up to, where there's actual depth to it. And normally walking simulators do not have that much depth. It's literally just walking, but there's no challenge to it. And this one has a great deal of just interesting challenge in what it takes to actually transport all of these different things, and then dealing with the enemies that you have to deal with, and the boss fights are excellent. They're like on very similar level, if not the same level as many of the best of Metal Gear Solid, which is saying a lot. But Kojima's that good. So yeah, Death Stranding.
Very nice. And the fact that this is only number 2 makes me really wonder what could have beat out the Kojima greats. But going back to Sea of Stars, I definitely am interested in checking that out because you did gift me the game. So considering the fact that, I mean, while I don't think I completed it, I did enjoy Chrono Trigger. So I am interested in playing a game that is similar to that. And it should definitely be a fun experience, and definitely hearing your praise, definitely, it gives me a lot of hope about that. So thank you also for gifting that to me.
Of course. Do you have any comments on Death Stranding before we go into our number ones?
I feel like eventually maybe I'll check out Death Stranding. I didn't have any. I wasn't certain what to expect from the game, and of course I've seen footage from that you've posted into it, but still I had my doubts as if I would like it or not. But I feel like maybe eventually I'll give it a shot and see what's really all about.
For sure. I need to look and see if that. I don't know if that one's on GOG. If it is, I need to probably get a GOG copy at some point. But either way, I'm just like, I'll buy this game again for sure. I'm hoping that it comes to Switch because I would love to see how it does on. Well, I mean, it would be Switch 2, but how it does on Switch 2. And I mean, like, that would be a day one purchase for me for sure, especially if there's a physical version. Which I hope that if it does come to Switch 2, that it would be physical on day one. Because if it's not, then I would basically be like, I gotta wait for there to be a physical version. But yeah.
I mean, that could also maybe be a comparison down the road too.
Well, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And it would be an interesting one because the performance on Steam Deck is pretty mixed. So it would be interesting. I mean, like I'd have to make a lot of progress in the game to be able to do like a comparison that really shows how the game runs under the more difficult circumstances. But either way, it's good stuff. All right. New to us, game of the year for you.
All right. So the game of the year that's new to me is going to be Kingdom Hearts 1.5 plus 2.5, but specifically Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix. Now, while I played some of the vanilla Kingdom Hearts 2 a while back, I never finished that game. So coming back into Final Mix was sort of a new experience to me because while I had seen some story elements, I didn't really get into the game as much as I would have liked to. So it felt completely fresh to me, and certain things or doubts that I don't know why I had them, even though I played a little bit of the game. Certain doubts that I had as far as the story is concerned, I felt like it really met my expectations as far as playing the first Kingdom Hearts game and seeing in some ways it really improved the story as well. And I really like the fact that certain elements were also consistent with the first game for the most part. There were a couple things that I felt like were inconsistent, but overall it did a great job. The combat definitely was great and definitely improved upon the first game, even though my gripes with the lack of a dodge roll until you actually have to level up one of your forms, and the fact that using Cure depletes all of your MP. But other than that, though, I felt like there was a great evolution to the combats, and I even really used summons this time around, whereas when the first game, I never used my summons at all. But this time, I felt like there was more of a need to actually use them, especially if you want to go for all the achievements. There were scenarios where you actually need to use them. And I mean, the bosses were great playing through the game as well. And getting through the final mix content was challenging, annoying sometimes, but it still was great. And with a few exceptions, I would do it all again. it's just been a solid game, and I've really enjoyed it. And technically, the game is this year will be coming out in 20 years. I think it came out in 2005, so it's definitely a game that has aged terrifically, and it makes me hope that 3 does things better and does not just stagnate from here.
That's really great. Yeah, I mean, Kingdom Hearts 2 is an amazing game, and obviously I've never played Final Mix, but I absolutely loved the original on PS2, and I'm glad that you had a chance to fully play through this game and enjoyed it as much as you did. And I'll be interested to hear like how you feel about like Birth by Sleep by the time you're done with that, and especially compared with Kingdom Hearts 2. Because, I mean, for me, Birth by Sleep is second to Kingdom Hearts 2. But, of course, I still haven't played a lot of Kingdom Hearts 3. And although what I played I really liked, I'm still so early in the game that I can't really say much of anything about what I feel about the game overall. So, but obviously the best thing about all of this is the fact that we actually have Kingdom Hearts on PC and not Epic Games exclusive anymore.
100%.
So, good stuff. All right, so my number one new to me game for this year is Dark Souls Remastered. And this shouldn't come as a surprise because of how much time I've spent playing these games, how much time I've spent talking about these games, which is probably almost as many hours as I've spent playing them. In the end, with completing all achievements and doing 3.5 full playthroughs on the PC version, primarily on Steam Deck, I have about, I think it's 142 hours, might be as much as 145, maybe even more. I can't remember, but it's in the 140s for all of that. And there is so much that I can say about this game in terms of just what an experience it's been. Because although this year was not the first time I ever played Dark Souls Remastered, because I originally got it on Switch in 2022, I never got super far into it. And I mean, like, I probably still had more than half of the bosses left. And of course, my build was absolute garbage, and it was just, when I finally gave this game another chance, when I bought it on PC this year, when it finally dropped enough in price, and really dove into it, I ended up just absolutely loving it. And I mean, the fact that I played it and then did New Game Plus immediately after playing it says a lot, because there are very few games that I am motivated enough to do an entire New Game Plus run immediately after finishing the game. I think the only other games I can think of where I've done that have been Chrono Trigger and why is my brain not working right now? Oh, Persona 4 Golden. Those are the only games where I've done a New Game Plus run immediately after, until Dark Souls Remastered. And the fact that I, of course, did that and then was willing to start another New Game Plus run after finishing my last run, my first Sorcerer build run, definitely says something. And yes, I didn't do the full game. I wouldn't actually mind finishing up the rest of the game, but I was just kind of like, okay, I only went this far primarily because I wanted to get the rest of the achievements. But yeah, this game is incredible, and it is very challenging, and it's easier when you know your way around and when you know how to deal with the bosses and everything. And definitely sorcery build is the easiest way to play the game, especially because in addition to, of course, just the fact that you have an easier time attacking the bosses in general because you don't have to be up close to it most of the time. It's also just the fact that once you've built up your stats to your satisfaction with that, you really can do whatever you want with your build. Sorcery build is the only one where you have the ability to do anything, and the other builds all have their limits. So that might not be true with clerics. I'm not sure about clerics, but at least sorcery build is the only one I know of where you can use all the different kinds of spells, and you could also do physical or dex build as well if you wanted to. So, yep, Dark Souls Remastered is my number one new to me game for the year.
Great pick. Definitely is a fun game. Definitely something that I need to actually finish. But yeah, I mean, I can't argue with anything. It's definitely a great game, and I understand why it is your number one pick.
All right. So now that we've talked about those separations between our new games and new to us games, let's get into our top 10 overall, including both lists. So give me your number 10.
All right. So number 10 is going to be Gundam Breaker 4. Like I said before, very solid mech game, and something that I need to continue playing, but it definitely scratches the itch for many things that I have been looking for in one.
All right, excellent. My number 10 is Animal Well. And, once again, already talked extensively about this, but excellent game and excellent Metroidvania. Well worth it. All right, number 9.
Number 9 is BioShock. Great first-person shooter.
Okay. Number 9 for me is Persona 3 Reload. And I'm sure if I had gotten further in this game, it would be higher up on the list. But because I just haven't gotten as far, it's lower than it would be otherwise. So that's all I have to say other than everything else I've already said about the game. Number 8.
Number 8 is Katana Zero. It's definitely a fun game to play. I feel like if it had been longer and if it didn't end on the cliffhanger that it did, it probably would rank higher on this list. But it definitely still deserves a ranking on this list for me.
All right. Well, my number 8 is Dark Souls 3. And I'm sure, once again, that if I had not cheesed as many bosses, and also probably if I had finished the DLC, it would be higher up on my list. But either way, it still made it into my top 10 overall for the year. Number 7.
Number 7 is 9 Years of Shadows, and if it wasn't for the fact that there was needless backtracking in this game and a lack of shortcuts, this would really rank higher because it's a very great game and the gameplay is excellent, but due to those flaws, it sadly was bumped lower.
All right, that's fair. Okay, let's see where we are. We're on number 7? Yeah, 7. All right, my number 7 is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. And there's really not much more to say than what I've already said about it, but it's great, and I am very glad that I played it finally this year. Number 6.
Number 6 is going to be Ghost of Tsushima. Unfortunately, this game had to go up against other games for me. Otherwise, this would rank much higher. But this game still is just a solid experience, and it's a very fun game for people who want to play that sort of samurai type of game.
All right, good stuff. All right, number 6 for me is the Castlevania Advance Collection, especially Harmony of Dissonance and Aria of Sorrow, but Circle of the Moon is also excellent. Don't bother with Dracula's Curse, though. Or Dracula X. That's just garbage. Okay, number 5.
Number 5 is Halls of Torments. Very fun game, very sort of addictive game because of all the customization, but yeah, definitely fun experience.
All right. Number 5 for me is Sea of Stars. And plenty's already been said about this game. Great homage to Chrono Trigger with its own unique style at the same time. And it's just really a great game. So well worth playing. Number 4.
Number 4 is Spider-Man Remastered. I've said pretty much everything I've had to say, but still, great game.
All right, my number 4 is Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. And another one where if I had played more of the game, it would probably rank higher on my list, but it is still absolutely an excellent game, and I'm looking forward to playing the rest of the Vengeance storyline this year. Number 3.
Number 3 is going to be Kingdom Hearts Final Mix, and there were there were enough differences to me based on playing vanilla and the Final Mix version, which I never played before, that really made this sort of stand out to me enough that I felt like it was worth mentioning in this top 10 list, and I've really enjoyed it. Still a good game.
All right, my number 3 is Death Stranding. And I'm not going to gush any more about this game, but it is super excellent, well worth playing, and not a simple walking simulator, way more deep than anyone would think, and it's just brilliant across the board. So there's that. Now, number 2.
Number 2 is Palworld. Pretty much have said everything that I have to say about it. I think that there's still more that could be done to make the game better, which to me means that I probably could get a better experience, but as far as where it stands now, it is pretty fun.
All right, my number 2 is God of War Ragnarok. And once again, more than enough has already been said about this game, but it is a stellar game, an excellent Metroidvania, and if you haven't played the other God of War games, especially because of the nudity and sexual content that were in the previous games, you don't need to play those. You can just play 2018, the God of War 2018 game, which is just labeled as God of War, as well as Ragnarok, or at least I would say play 2018. If you like 2018, play Ragnarok. If you don't like 2018, then don't bother with it. But if you like Metroidvanias and you like a good story that deals a lot with a father struggling to figure out how to raise his son to not make the same mistakes that he made, and just to be a man on his own after the death of his wife and obviously his son's mother in that case. These games are excellent, and of course the combat is probably my favorite thing about these games, but also the fact that they're Metroidvanias. So, all right, overall game of the year, give it to me.
Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix. I've said many things about this game throughout the year, so it shouldn't be too much of a surprise, but yeah, it's definitely been a game I've enjoyed, and am very glad I went through that experience, and I would gladly do it again.
All right, my game of the year, to no one's surprise, is Dark Souls Remastered, and I don't really know what else needs to be said about this game. It's just an amazing game, and I'm so glad that I played it, and there's so many of those moments where it's just like super memorable, and this is a game that I will definitely come back to in the future, just not anytime soon, because I've played it. I played it 3 times in 2024, 3.5 times, and yeah, great game, and I look forward to finishing up the rest of Dark Souls 3 and eventually trying out at least Dark Souls 2. All right. Well, that is our Game of the Year discussion. the full thing. Let's just get into the end of the show here because it is late and I'm starting work again tomorrow. So, recommendations and dissuasions.
My recommendation is going to be to listen to the Dark Souls game soundtrack because unfortunately, when you're in the middle of a boss fight, it's hard to appreciate the music, even though you can recognize that it's there. But when you're listening to it outside of the game, you really can appreciate and enjoy the music for what it is. So definitely check it out outside of the game.
Very good recommendation. My recommendation is something kind of random, but I've been in this spot where I've been trying to wean myself out of drinking soda, particularly I've been on diet soda for a long time, zero sugar stuff. But I've been trying to wean myself off because of, artificial sweeteners and all that, and just trying to wean myself off of artificial sweeteners in general. So what I want to recommend as something for anybody else who is interested in doing that, at least if you like the kind of stuff, one of the things I've been doing is basically making myself what is more or less a grapefruit soda. And that is just doing mineral water plus grapefruit juice. And that's all you need. It's got a little bit of sweetness. I mean, just a tiny bit of sweetness. Because grapefruit isn't very sweet. It's mostly tart. But at the same time, you don't need to add any sort of sweetener to it. I mean, if you want to, there are natural sweeteners you can use. I do it without a sweetener for that. And it's really good. It's really good because I always liked grapefruit soda, but this grapefruit soda equivalent has become a new favorite of mine, and that, along with various other things I've been doing, have been helping me on that front. So, yeah, that's what I got. All right, dissuasions.
My dissuasion is going to be do not give up on your New Year's resolutions too soon. Primarily, this is addressing people who want to do some sort of self-improvement. I feel like people have these resolutions, and within the first few months, maybe even by the end of January, they might have fallen short of the goals they were trying to make, and they just give up altogether. I would just say keep going at it. As long as, you're still alive, you technically still have a chance to keep pursuing that goal, so don't just drop it because you feel like you failed at one point in the year, and so just keep going.
Very, very good, especially this time of year. Well, my dissuasion is going to be if you decide as you're playing something like Dark Souls that you want to get all the achievements, do not go in completely blind on some of those, particularly the ones that relate to getting the weapons, getting the various sorceries, miracles, and pyromancies, because if you go in completely blind without any tips to help you not miss stuff, it's very easy to miss things, and which would make it basically so that you have to do an entirely new playthrough in order to get those things. So, yes.
Very good advice.
All right. Where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel. I am Xeracon. That's IAMXERACON. So youtube.com/@IamXeracon. No new videos from me this week just because being busy with other stuff. But I've started already working on the year in Linux review. So that should be out by early next week. So, yeah.
Good stuff. All right, well, you can find me on my YouTube gaming channel at TheFrozenGamer87. This week has only been so far just clips from the podcast for last week. But this coming week, God willing, I am hoping to have the comparison for Persona 5 Strikers up on my channel next Monday. There's a chance it'll be delayed by a week. It kind of just depends because this weekend's a little busier than usual with me getting back to work and doing music at church on Sunday. So depending on how much time I have on Saturday, I may or may not be able to actually finish that. But I'm not going to force myself to get it done. If I can't get it done, then I can't get it done, but I'm definitely planning to work on it this weekend, if nothing else. Then as for my YouTube cooking channel, which is called Not Authentic But Delicious, and that's YouTube at NABD Cooking. The only video I've done that went up this week, technically, was my Chubby Ninja Smash Burger. For the time being, at least, I'm going to keep it as unlisted just because I want to... I don't want it to seem like I'm trying to cash in on the death of a friend that so many of us loved. But even if that one doesn't go public, I'll probably be putting together something over the next week or so. I'm just not quite sure what yet, because getting back into the swing of things between work and we're going to start doing discipleship at church again and family groups, and all that just means that I'm going to have less extra time to work on stuff. But hopefully we'll be doing some more of that in general. However, if you haven't already seen it, there is my recipe for my dad's favorite breakfast sandwich. My dad passed away almost 6 years ago, or actually over 6 years ago. And it's a really good breakfast sandwich. The video's been doing great. It's actually one of my best performing videos in a while, by a long shot. So I was very surprised by that. But yeah, so check out the recipe. Very easy to make and very, very good. But yeah, I think that's it for that. Of course, we have the YouTube channel for the podcast at the Orange Box Podcast. And there you can see not only our beautiful faces, but you can see clips from all the games that we've been playing over the past week, as well as clips from other games and game series we talk about. But it's just an opportunity to get a little more out of it than just listening to the podcast. So you'll still get all the video game music that's included every week, but you'll get that in addition to all the video clips that we also include. Our Game of the Year discussion this week has clips from everything else. So yeah, so there's the video version of the podcast that normally goes live at 7 a.m. Central Time every Friday morning. There have been some differences these past couple weeks because of the holidays, but it's going to be back to Friday morning, 7 a.m. Central Time, barring any technical difficulties that prevents it from going up then. The audio-only version of the podcast, which is up on all major podcast platforms every Friday at 12 a.m. Central Time. You can, of course, check that out, and it's going to have all the same content minus the video, and it's good stuff. So be sure to check us out on any of those platforms. If you want to reach out to us, whether you have a comment, a question, you want to tell us to Persona 3 ourselves, or whatever else you may have in terms of commentary, feel free to reach out either by commenting on the video version of the podcast, sending us an email through the orangeboxpodcast@gmail.com, or sending us either a direct message or just tweeting us, whatever you want to call it, on X / Twitter. You can reach us at the Orange Box Pod. And that should be everything. All right. Any final thoughts?
No, sir.
Well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zeracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast. And until next time, have a happy new year. Orange Box Podcast out.